could be with anyone, and I could be with anyone. You're hearing me.
Hey, what's happening, everybody? You guys got me eating. Got me snacking. Like, not professional at all.
Man's got to eat, a man's got to eat.
I'm telling you, starving, boy, starving. But welcome to Sunday. Very excited to talk about becoming sister wives. This week, we're talking about Christine's version of how she deals with the kids and how the family is disciplined. The kids are disciplined. What her take is. What are the big concerns for the kids, particularly the young ladies. We'll talk about that in a moment. Mm-hmm. But with me tonight is the ever illustrious, most wonderful Jenny from Senior Perspective. Jenny.
Hello, everybody. So glad to be here.
All right. See, she's happy to be here. I'm happy to be here. We're all happy to be here. Isn't that such a happy time? I want to say hi to everybody. Before we get started, I want to make sure I give a shout out to the mods, because there was a time when I would forget, and I just want to make sure I get it in early. I'll probably do it a couple times just to be fair. But give a huge shout out to the mods. I see Lynn Skinner's in the house. Earlier, I saw Lizzie B. I think Rochelle J is here. Is there anybody else for you? Do you know?
I don't see anybody else.
Okay.
Not at this point, anyway.
Well, as they come in, because, people got stuff to do, and I understand that. So as they come in, we'll give them a shout out. Make sure as you guys are coming in, you hit that like button. Mm-hmm. If you're not yet subscribed to our channels, go ahead and give us the HBO special, which stands for Help Brother and Sister Out. Go ahead and hit those subscribe buttons and let us know. So the HBOs.
Love that.
HBO. So make sure you hit those. We can talk about this craziness. We can, I guess, jump right into it. What was your impression of the this whole chapter?
Well, to give the people who haven't read it a background, this is a very short chapter. Again, just like the last one was, just a few pages long, like 6 to 8 pages long. But I will say, I feel like this one had a lot more content than the last 6 to 8 pages that we read from Janelle. I felt like Janelle was really kind of walking the company line, if you will, and just sort of talking the talk. Whereas I feel like Christine, especially if you read between the lines, I feel like she was giving us a lot more dirt, but in a very polite way. And she's very complimentary of the other wives as well.
Right. I agree with that. Mm-hmm. And I think that there's because something really struck me as I was reading through the chapter this week, that maybe what the wives had agreed to do was to be more sensitive about the kids. So it's okay to kind of talk about the kids and broad brush the kids, but they might have put themselves in a situation where they said, you know what, we're not going to really talk a whole lot or talk extensively about the children. Mm-hmm. And as I thought about that, I was like, that's kind of consistent with what we saw in the show, even because even though we're introduced to the children and we're vaguely familiar, and they have like the cute segments, like Truly is a scene stealer, like that girl was stealing scenes the whole time.
Yeah.
But Truly, Gabe was another one. He was always stealing scenes. Mm-hmm. But as they were doing that, there's very few times where they actually had interaction with the kids where the show or the episode was specifically about the children. I can maybe count on my hands the number of times they've actually had their own show, like one of which would be when they had the fight between Gabe and Garrison. Mm-hmm. Another one, maybe when Mary was out there yelling at the kids, but they never really got into who did what and how it all transpired. They had the ones where the kids would say things to the parents, but you wouldn't necessarily see the parents' reactions back to the children, especially in the way that I think that they would react to the kids, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, but I do agree. Like there, even with that being said, Christine is being a lot more specific, and maybe that's because she deals with the kids more, so she has more to say about the kids because that's kind of in her wheelhouse.
That's true. Good point. Very good point. Yeah, she would have more to say. And I would imagine Robyn doesn't have much to say. I can't remember when I read it last time, but it seems pretty short too. Because Robyn has double the number of pages on family.
Right.
Janelle or Christine, that would say a whole bunch. But no, they seem to all be pretty short, with the exception of Mary's.
Yeah, it's because I can kind of see a situation where on one hand, Robyn only really deals with her children, so her perspective would be very limited to what is going on in her house with her kids.
Right.
But then at the same time, after watching this show for all these years, it does, or not even all these years, but watching the show from like episode 1, season 1, all the way through. The one thing that I will say about Robyn, irregardless of whether she was there or not, she has an opinion on what happened.
Yeah.
So she'll talk about when we first got together as a family, this is how we did things. You weren't there. You heard about it like I heard about it. So what are we talking about? Maybe in more detail, but you weren't there. You don't know.
Right. Yeah. She is the expert of all things, isn't she?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, she speaks the language. She's the communicator. So.
Oh, well, there you go. Yes. The ultimate communicator, the mediator, and the only one who can speak Cody.
Yeah, right. All messages must come through me. Get out of nap, so I will use my vocabulary when I call Cody a loser. Use your words, Kathy. Kathy Ferrer. Very funny. Very funny. Yeah, it's just here's Danny. What's going on, Danny Towns? Robyn made herself the certified expert on polygamy, and this is very true.
Sure
Like the one person who has the least experience when it comes to polygamy was always the one in polygamous families. You don't know. Your parents did it, but just because you can marry a surgeon, that don't mean you're able to do brain surgery. Hell, you might not even be able to do first aid.
100%.
So,
100%. That's her. I saw it, so therefore I'm an expert.
Right.
Well, I heard about it secondhand. My mom was a polygamist, although we never really saw the other moms, and the siblings all lived out of state too. So,
right.
And we didn't even get together for Christmas. So does that tell you how much of a polygamous family she was raised with? She didn't even get together with the other sister wives and kids on Christmas. So,
right.
She doesn't.
And because that's an interesting point too, is that because the same way, and I've always kind of held this out, especially as I talk about Sister Wives, the polygamy propaganda program.
Mm-hmm.
The same way that they will stand on the mantle of, you guys don't really understand how polygamy works because you're approaching it with a monogamous mindset. So therefore, you don't really understand how polygamy works. They use our prejudices against us, in the sense that when I think of a polygamous relationship, like you just said, I would think that as a family, you would get together on holidays, that you would be close, that you would have relationships between the sister wives, that they would be close friends, or at least friends, if not friendly at best.
Yeah.
That the kids would all know each other as siblings. That's what I would imagine, especially if you're going to stand there on the mantle of, we're being subjugated and mistreated and oppressed because of our beliefs and because we're trying to do this thing. That's what my inclination is, and dare I say my prejudice would be, or the way I would prejudge it when I'm looking at this type of relationship. But the truth of the matter is that you have hey,
that's right,
little cameo
text on the side, and it shall come.
Right.
Oh, the fan. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Right. Thank you so much.
I'm like, I actually had him turn it off right before this because I can't reach it. It's really, really short, and this chair swivels, so I can't stand on it. So I was like, hey, because it's chilly today. I'm like, can you turn off that fan? And he's like, yeah, sure. And he came in and turned it off. And as we got going, I'm like, oh, It's hot in this room, though.
Right. I'm about to pass out.
I know. I'm like texting him, Zach, I'm so sorry. Come back. It's going to be a long night if you don't.
Right. Pass out halfway through.
Yeah.
But it's kind of what I was saying with the flying chancla. She hit it. I think that just means her dad had a girlfriend, not a polygamist, a polygamous relationship, and that's kind of how some of this was expressed, or at least came off to me, that it wasn't necessarily a polygamous relationship as much as you just had a bunch of mistresses and baby mamas.
Yeah.
100%. Right. So, I mean,
I don't even know. She never talks about like even the ceremony, the marriage ceremony that she had. There's no talk about. There's a talk about how close they were. Well, yeah, she was the extra side piece. Of course, they were close when he was there. That's how it works.
Right.
So, I mean, this is not new news. Thanks for sharing that, Robyn. And she's like, that's what I want to be. Oh, the side piece. All right, very good. Well, you worked your way into that position.
Right, the favorite, and there is something to be said about, the one who gets a lot of attention would be the one that you're kind of, slipping out to see.
Mm-hmm.
It's just kind of the nature of the beast. It doesn't mean necessarily you love her more, you're more committed to her. It's just that she gets more attention, and that's the role or position Robyn played. Because I think there is an argument to be made that like love, time, and attention, is what we all kind of crave. And that's what love is, like time and attention. And Robyn expresses that time and attention by garnering Cody's favor, by cultivating a relationship where he comes over and spends more time at her place, with her and her kids. And then, ironically, I don't understand why the other women are mad, because there's only 24 hours in a day and he's spending 18 of them at your house. So,
Yeah, makes absolutely no sense. And then he actually comes out in the end seasons and says, well, I have to, like my youngins, my young kids, my little ones are all here and I have to be there for them. I'm like, truly?
Right.
Really only 1 year older than Solomon. So the one you keep forgetting about, you remember her?
Right. The lost child.
Poor Cody.
Yeah, Christian Evans said their culture is set up in a way that breeds more participants. The men peacock for all attention because they are given the most attention as children. I would say they not only get the most attention. I agree with that sentiment, but to add on to it, I would say they not only get the most attention as children, but the entire society is built around the men. So they are the center. And the women and children are to satellite the men. The men are the planet, and the children and women are the satellites to said planet. So the men are is Earth, and the women are the moon. So they kind of see them as floaters around. Like you like to have them around, but you don't necessarily need them. You know what I mean? So I guess they're Jupiter because they have 8 or 9 moons and don't really give a damn about any of them.
Right. So, you know what I found interesting today? We're looking on Thursday nights after we finish reading the book at starting over with My 5 Wives, just because I liked My 5 Wives, and I know TLC found it too boring, and I don't know. There's controversy also about one of their fathers, but I enjoyed the show, and I don't know if I enjoyed the show so much because it was a respite from Sister Wives, because it really came from a different angle, but like, I don't always want to see like there's sometimes you just really want to sit and relax and enjoy yourself. And Sister Wives is not a relaxing, enjoyable show. It's something that gets your blood pressure pumping, and something that makes you literally create a YouTube channel, which I've never thought I'd do in my whole life. And it's all because of Sister Wives that happened. So what I found interesting in all of this is I was looking into My 5 Wives a little bit more and going back. Brady is so much like Kody, in that he was older and his dad decided to join the faith. And then he eventually came around to it too and joined. It's just that they're such different people that they kind of
Right.
went about it very differently. But that storyline is what made me start to think, isn't it interesting that there are all these men coming to the faith who weren't in the faith before? You never hear about a female saying, that sounds like a great plan. I want to join that. So I just wonder how difficult it must be for them to get enough of these wives, because in the culture, unless a lot of the men decide it's not for them and they leave, but generally speaking, we do have about a 50% population. So you would think, okay, well, these men are taking 3 to 5 wives. And so where are all the women coming from? It just was really interesting to me. And how angry must some of those men in the faith be to see these men from the outside in their late teens and in their 20s deciding, yeah, I want to do that too. And I'm going to join the culture and take 3 to 5 of those wives for myself. I don't know. I just found it really interesting. I never really thought of it until today of where are they getting the women from?
Right. Well, because I think that the way, or at least my understanding, and if anybody in chat knows better, please correct me. I'm not going to cement this as my end all belief, but it's my understanding that in a lot of these cultures, what they do, as far as the young men are concerned, they will pretty much groom the young women and prepare them for these multiple marriages. The sons or the young men, they try to push them aside and push them. And in some cases, like the was it the Kingston group and the one group with Warren Jeffs, his group, they would excommunicate the young men. They would kick them out of the groups altogether.
That's
They'd
true.
drop them off.
Yes.
Yeah, and so because they wanted to make the young ladies available for the young men. So the guys who were growing up in the faith wouldn't necessarily have, which is ironic too in and of itself, because they grow up in the faith, they grow up with this system of marriage, but they wouldn't have access to that marriage because they grew up in that system. But the ones who come into the system, you know, they don't give a damn what old Jeeves is talking about. I'm not going nowhere. I see 4 or 5 women I'm gonna talk to, and I'm gonna get them.
Yeah.
And so they have a substantive advantage partly because too they don't have the earworm that's put into some of the kids as far as the programming is concerned. And so when they pursue, they don't necessarily have that voice in the back of their head saying this is something they shouldn't be doing. And I think that might be part of it.
Do you think the Kingstons let men from the outside come in like the AUB does?
No. I think the Kingston group is a lot more closed off. From what I understand, that particular group will not only they are a lot more. I have to be very careful. I say this. They are a lot more relaxed as far as their bloodline boundaries with regard to who can get married and who can't. From my understanding, you have like cousins who are kissing cousins.
Okay.
So so they're pretty much the magical reef of like their family tree is the magical reef that your uncle cousin.
Yeah.
Get over here with your granddaddy, uncle cousin. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, like, there's a lot more intermingled. But, like, so that's what I understand about the Kingston group. There's actually a couple YouTubers who are from the Kingston group, and there was a young lady. I know she would sit and drink wine and stuff. She was interesting. I was actually going to reach out to her. I couldn't remember what her name was though. But she talks a lot about growing up in this system, and she'll have people from the group come on to her show, people who escaped from the group, and she was married to one of her cousins. So
was she? Is she the blonde?
Yes.
Yeah, I see. I saw something that she did once. I remember thinking it was good. Yeah.
From what I understand, she was married to one of her cousins, and so was her sister. Like her sister was also married because she's obviously she's in the group too. So that's how they set it up. But they keep it a lot. They're depending on the group, from my understanding. And again, if anybody knows different or is more informed than I am, I'm not saying I'm a know-all or expert, subject matter expert. But it's just that my understanding, different groups have different parameters as far as who they let in and how they let them in. Like, for instance, there's some groups that I think I could join the Mormon group, but I don't think I can join other groups. Like, I don't think I could join the AUB, and I don't think I could join the I know I can't join the Kingstons.
Oh, so the people from the outside who ended up joining the AUB, that was okay because they were Mormon first. Is that right? They were LDS?
A lot of them,
Okay.
from my understanding, a lot of them are coming from the Mormon faith. But some of them have like they even have like social parameters. They'll have racial parameters where you can't join if you're a certain ethnic background or whatever. So you know, yeah. And it just, I guess, it just depends on how deep you go into the faith. You know, because who is it? Cody's nephew, Ben. He actually, I don't know if you know this, but he's actually doing, he's reviewing some of the earlier episodes.
I haven't watched any yet, but I saw it come up in a thumbnail. Have you been watching them?
Yeah, I watched 2 of them. I'm actually going to do reactions on them. I'll probably release them this week, maybe one tomorrow, and then one on Tuesday.
Okay.
But yeah, he's I would say that he's to a point. He's a comedian in Utah,
Right.
and I think that he is telling his truth. But I do get a sense that he is a little careful. Amanda Ray. Oh, that's the person. Okay.
Yeah.
Amanda Ray is the person.
Yeah.
But yeah, I get the feeling that he gives some very good points, and some of the points that he's made are things that I've even said in the past. So, like, I'm in a very much agreement with a lot of what he says with regard to how polygamy is carried out, how it could be an institution which subjugates women, and is not only damaging for the ladies who are involved with it, but it's also damaging. I think it's very damaging to the men as well, because they're given a false sense of reality, and they don't necessarily know how to navigate the world around them. And because they can't navigate the world around them properly, and because they have this bloated sense of self, as far as their ego is concerned, that they can't have healthy relationships. This could preclude them from being able to have healthy relationships with other people, not just limited to their wives, but also to their children and how they associate within their communities. Yeah. So I think it's it could be very damaging for everyone involved, especially the kids. I mean, goodness gracious, talk about the children. Like, they probably get the worst of it because they don't have a say. You know? Yeah.
I wonder if anybody out there who watches Growing Up Polygamy, I know the gentleman was he a Kingston? I guess that's my question, because he was from that group. He was what's it called? Not AUB, but FLDS. I know he's FLDS, so I wonder if anyone knows if he's Kingston, if he talked about it on any. I catch their stuff every now and then, but not enough to know their whole history or anything like that. But yeah, it would be interesting to know. I know his wife was LDS, but he had, generally speaking, and again, I haven't watched all his videos in that. It's just little bits that he throws in there. If he's doing something sister-wise, I might click on it to watch or listen as I'm falling asleep at night. So then I miss half of it. But he has a pretty positive experience growing up.
Oh, okay.
He finds his father to be very supportive of all the wives and did a real good job of splitting his time. It's the little bit that I've caught. And he felt like they went out of the way to take care of them medically once he and his brothers were in an accident near Vegas, and the whole family, like, it became a family. It sounded very Amish to me. It was very much a rallying around and sending people down and making sure somebody was at the hospital every day. For the guys that were in there, he said he was in there for a while, and so his experience seems very different. So I would be curious to know if he was actually in the Kingston's group or not. And so, which they could be, because there were so many people. There could be a family where there was a decent guy, and he just did the best he could with the framework of what he was working with, in terms of being in that faith.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know if anyone knows. You can put it in the chat down below.
Yeah, Scotty's mom experience O'Brien said he is not a Kingston.
He is not a
Okay.
Kingston. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Scotty's mom experience, O'Brien.
Yeah. Well, I mean, because I will say this, like the thing with the certain sects of polygamy is we because we're on the outside. I have the feeling, at least this is my perspective, because we're on the outside, a lot of times we can shotgun it and think that there's the AUB, the Kingston group, and the every time I do this with this guy's name, Warren Jeffs, the Jeffs group.
Yeah.
But even within those groups, there are certain factions that exist within those groups and off splits from those groups because there's also the group in Mexico.
Right.
So
LeBarons.
Yeah, the LeBarons. And even they were fractured because like even with the AUB, they were fractured because of the because everybody, and this is where I say that the healthy relationships really are detrimental as far as the upbringing with the mindset of these young men because they all grow up thinking they're the prophet and they're the leader and they all want to be in charge. So it's very hard for you to run an organization where everybody wants to be the boss. Yeah. And what happens is everybody kind of splits off and heads to their own respective corners and they take their friends and their family with them and the people who, at least the way it comes off to me, and this may be, again, I'm open to the possibility that I may be misjudging this as a person who is looking at it from the outside. But from what it looks like to me is that you have people who want to participate in this and they say, okay, I'm in this, and who do I go with? Do I go with the prophet, the guy who runs the organization now, or do I go with the other guy who wants to take the organization over, but he said that he would give me 3 wives, he would give me a pick of the litter as far as the businesses are concerned, and I could become one of the inner circle. So it becomes a question of not necessarily faith or allegiance, but more or less opportunity. Because I saw, like, especially with the LeBaron story, I saw a lot of opportunism as far as how people made decisions, how they fell, as far as who do I go with, who do I go against, who do I stay with, et cetera, et cetera. If the guy offered you enough wives, you're willing to do anything, including, create havoc and mayhem in different states.
Well, especially too, because you got to remember they don't have much of an education. All they know is what they were raised with. So it's one thing for any given person to be in that position of, like, so many people are so attracted to power, especially men. Right. And so that's just sort of in general a genetic disposition of wanting to have more and be powerful. But you add it in with this whole teaching on top of it and a lack of education and knowing better. And I mean, it kind of turns mafia-ish.
Yeah, well, because I can see that, because you have a situation where, and this is one of the severe downsides with having closed societies, because when you're able to close the society off and keep secrets and shape policy, shape how people's worldview is formulated, then what you're able to do is you're able to direct them the way you want them to go, and what is it, the one-eyed man in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. So if you have information, if you know something that nobody else knows, how the world works. Something as simple as that. How does the world work? I know that, but you don't know that. Then I have a certain modicum of power over you. And this is why, and I think that the people, this is why they keep them on the ranch and keep them on the farm, because they're trying to keep them from getting any additional information or knowledge, especially when it comes to social knowledge, because not everything is in books. But when it comes to social knowledge or social intelligence, where you have somebody saying, one woman saying, yeah, I'm 17 years old and I'm about to have my 3rd child. And I've been married for 2 or 3 years. And then you have somebody else come in and say, don't you want to do anything else with your life other than, be this man's broodmare? And then that makes her ask the question. Like sometimes all it takes is one question. And all of a sudden you start seeking that answer and you break away. And that's part of the reason why they discourage any interactions with anybody outside the group, because you'll come in there and ask that question.
In the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king.
Yeah.
You're very Dr. Phil. You know that? There's not a
Really?
Sunday night that goes by that you can't off the top of your head come up with one of these one-liners that feels, I'm going to call you Dr. James from now on every time you do that.
Yeah, I was a quote kid. I used to like quotes a lot.
It used to be the one thing whenever I'd watch him on Oprah every Wednesday. I would the best thing about it was just listening to those one-liners that would come out. He would have a quote and often many of them Southern sayings. And I'm from the North, so I don't know a lot of them, that I would just be so impressed. You're impressing me, James.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I used to like that because I spent a lot of time in Georgia and down south when I was a kid. Not a lot of time, but we'll do summers and stuff down there because we have family, visiting family. And one of my favorite cartoon characters, well, not favorite, but a character I always thought was intriguing was a guy named Foghorn Leghorn, which was like a big, huge chicken, a big rooster. And he used to have these crazy sayings. And he reminded me of people that I would encounter down there where they would say the craziest stuff. But it was it would be so brilliant in its simplicity.
Yeah.
It's you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just common sense, just brilliant.
Yeah.
But it would be broken down into maybe one or two sentences.
Yeah.
But they would say more in those two sentences than most people could say in a paragraph. It was amazing. So I always was attracted to that.
Yeah, I love it.
But so with this chapter, what in the hell? No. I gotta tell you, when it first started out, and
she came out swinging, I feel like.
Yeah. She definitely did not come out. She came to play.
Yeah.
She came to play.
Yeah.
Because she wasn't, and for some reason, I've always kind of thought, at least when I first started watching the show, that Christine was a little more reserved. And this was I think that this, and I'm admittedly so, I think this was a mistake I made early on. I always thought that she was a lot more reserved and a lot more kind of go with the flow. But as I'm watching this series, and I had to go back to watch from season 1, episode 1, because I wasn't a long time fan. I didn't really start watching until about season 16. Okay. And then after season 16 and 17, I went back and started watching the whole thing. And it always amazed me how outspoken she always was. I'd always thought wow, she finally found her voice. Christine had been ringing the bell and sounding the alarm since season 1, episode 1. She had been, this ain't gonna work. This is gonna end in disaster. You know that, right? Yeah. And she would catch a lot of shit because why are you saying that? You're gonna make it. Why do you have such a bad attitude? She's just telling you where it is.
Yes, she's the reason I kept watching. In that first season, when she's like, I don't understand. My sister wives are saying we could use one more. Why? Everything is great. And I'm like, whoa, okay. I'm in.
Right.
This isn't going to go well. And then when I see what Robyn looked like and I saw the attention he was giving her, I'm like, okay, I get it, Christine. I see what you're saying and I'm here for it.
Right. Yeah, because he had zero poker face. Especially when you watch those early episodes, his poker face was horrible.
Yes.
Because you're not supposed to sit there and smile and grin when she walks in a room, you light up. And when the other women walk into the room, you frown and start breaking stuff. Calm down. So it was a completely different thing.
Yeah. And that's when he knew the cameras were on. Can you imagine what it was like when the cameras weren't on? That was him being on his best behavior, really, at that time. And he just couldn't help himself. He was just like a giddy little boy. So no wonder the other wives were right away, he has a favorite.
Right.
Yeah.
And the best part is that this is one of the things that I think is kind of funny about polygamy, as I've seen it kind of demonstrate, at least on these shows. There's always an assumption that the women are idiots. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's a weird thing. Like, it's the weirdest shit ever. Like, I'm part of my brain. But it's the weirdest thing to me ever because they talk to them like they're dumb. Like, these are not dumb women.
Right.
But they say things to them like it doesn't make sense. Like, what are you talking about? Oh, yeah, because this is a great thing for us to do. And the women are like, no, this is terrible. This is, and Christine called it like season 1, episode 1. She pretty much predicted exactly where they would be at. And had Kody listened to her, he might have been able to avoid the damn iceberg.
Yeah.
You know, but he plowed right into it. So
yeah. She sent up every warning flag there was, with the exception of probably on the side, he was also slipping her some information on, well, this will keep the show going too. So maybe this is something that'll help prepare our kids, pull the kid string.
Right.
Help get our kids through college. We're having a hard time even making rent and paying, which bill are we going to pay on a given month? But if we can get TLC money so I have a feeling that's part of the reason why she said no, because she put her foot down on the other ones that he was interested in twice. So why would she not do it again when it seems pretty clear she's not thrilled with Robyn? So yeah, I do think that he used the show partly. I mean, smart on his part, because it's true. It's true. This is how they're going to get a lot of money. Now you have to decide, is that the value? Is that what you want in life? Like you're selling your soul to the devil when you're doing it. Like he didn't throw that part in there. And they didn't watch a lot of reality TV either. Their idea of reality TV was Survivor. So they didn't really have an understanding of how editing's going to happen and how much they were going to have to be really vulnerable. And I don't think she really knew what she was getting into at the beginning. And I don't think Kody cared, quite frankly, whether it's great, whether it's bad. I don't know. If I get this chick as my wife and I'm going to have a lot of money, at least for a couple years, I'm good with it, and let the chips fall where they may. If the rest of them want to leave after that, okay.
Right. And the sad part is that I think that because there's so much that back, but it's just it's one of those things where one, he's responding to it, because you talked about like the difference. I'll say it this way: strike that, redirect. you started it with the whole idea of the difference between Kody and Brady from My Five's Wives, and I think that is a substantive difference. It's a maturity level in which you approach these issues and these topics. It's not so much like the fact that you want to have 1 or 2 wives. No, I'm saying like just the idea of a little bit of planning, a little bit of foresight. And there's a thing that I came up with maybe I guess in the last few years, where succinctly I just asked the question, what does winning look like? And when Kody was putting together whether he wanted to bring this woman into his family and go into this television show and possibly have access to a ton of opportunities, ton of money, and things that he didn't necessarily have, are you willing to trade those things for the sanctity of your family? If you could have like the big house out in Arizona, Flagstaff, Arizona, and you could have the one wife, but it was going to cost you all your other wives and access to your kids, is that worth it? And is that winning to you? And, when you win, is this what you want? And I don't think that he really ever asked that question. Or at least maybe he did ask that question and he was okay with the answer. That's kind of the other part of it.
Could be because he didn't, by the time the kids became teenagers, he was kind of done with them. It was sort of like the wives. Like the wives served their purpose in terms of giving him kids, loved them when they were young, and they idolized them, and it was all, yes, dad. But as soon as they had opinions and they would talk back, anything of that nature, as soon as they grew up and they weren't idolizing him and they saw him for who he is, he was like, it seemed like he was okay with them going. Now, he loved the big family gatherings. He loved to be in the center, dancing, like being at an event. Christine's wedding had to have driven him crazy that
Right.
all the kids were there and everybody was dancing so much on the dance floor. He would have been in the center of that dance floor
Right.
the whole night, especially with his eye on where are the cameras. But like,
Right.
he just wants to be the center of attention at all times. And he thinks he's a great dancer and that people want to watch him flail around as he does. So I think that he misses.
Right.
And I'm curious what he feels about the grandchildren, because I don't know that he's really getting to know any of them. So he may not care that he's missing out on them, but they would also be kids that would idolize, unless the parents told them not to. But,
Right.
you know, I mean, grandpa, and run up and give all the hugs and all that kind of attention that he seeks and needs and wants so badly. So that makes me question, now that they're having grandkids, is he starting to regret? But I think at this given point, he's all right with the fact, I mean, Truly was 13 by the time we hit the last season. So I think he was like, yeah, it's okay if they all go do their own thing. I'm happy here with the one wife in the mansion, owning the land and having the two youngins, almost the same as Truly, in his house. And he was good with that. We'll see what happens down the road. And I think at that point, when we left at the end of season 18, his only regret were these big family get-togethers that were still happening without him. I think he felt if the family broke up, the family would break up and separate. But the reality is the family broke off. They didn't break up. They just broke off of him. And they're continuing to be a family. And we'll talk about that in this chapter too, because at the very end, I found that interesting when it came to the whole house situation. That was
Well, because I think it's kind of weird too that I think that part of his vulnerability is his arrogance, in that he didn't think, I don't think he ever really considered that they would not include him. Like, I think that when he considered it and he thought about the family possibly breaking up, they may separate from each other, but they would never separate from me. Because when you feel like you're the source and you're the center, then you can't imagine a world where people don't want you involved. Yeah. So I can see him getting stuck. Daisy Reyes, 489 Super Chat. Real talk, James. Everyone says Robyn was smart, but Christine knew what was good from the jump and shook the chessboard in the end. Yeah.
Yes, that's right, Daisy.
That right. Very, very smart. Oh, they think they're stuck on eggplant to have common sense. Yeah. I think they're blinded, you know.
That's right.
That's why it's so important that, you know, the whole, I guess we'll get into the whole idea of the chaste and saving your purity. That's why that's so important. Because if you don't know anything else, then the guy that brings you Ritz crackers is the feeder of the flock. You know?
Yeah, I wonder if he was sweating with Robyn.
Yeah. Well, because I think that that's a huge thing as far as a lot of them are concerned. Like the idea that they have to keep them pure. And, you know, Robyn gives them the ick factor because she had a husband before. She had been with another man. But like, because for me, I would be surprised, especially, you know, you're hitting like 40 and she's in her 30s. I would be crazy surprised if you ran into a woman who was still a virgin, no children, and you know what I mean. Like, I would be like, wow, that's it. You know, I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying it would be, you know, you would be one.
It's not that common.
Yeah. Right. You know, especially as you start to become a middle-aged man, if you're still out there looking for women, then you have to be comfortable with the notion that the women who are going to be in your purview are going to be people who are either divorcees or have children. Like, it's just, in my machinations, that would just be your dating pool. Like, I don't think that it would be something to shy away from. It just kind of is what it is.
Yeah.
You know, but okay, but this whole thing,
Mm.
like when Christine started out, she said having 6 kids of my own and another 11 children who come and go from my house is both fun and challenging. Over the years, my sister wives and I have had to figure out how to combine our different parenting styles into a cohesive vision that our kids completely understand. And this is, I think, very reminiscent to some of the things, ideas that were expressed earlier from both Mary and Janelle, where they talked about,
Mhm.
uh, you know, of a united front and presenting
Mhm.
themselves as as more of a unit as opposed to separate individual households.
Yeah.
Um, I do think it's a little interesting that even though Christine, Janelle, and Mary all talk about how the kids when they got older, uh, they kind of splintered away from like this unified household.
Right.
It doesn't seem as strongly worded from Christine as it did, say, from Mary. Even.
Right.
What are your thoughts on that?
I think Christine even contradicted Mary by coming right
Mm,
out and saying none of the kids were allowed to jump on furniture.
right, right.
Which she said that paragraph, I just thought, oh, I feel like she's trying to say so much, but I don't know exactly everything she's saying. She says, while all 4 of the households have more or less the same rules, the enforcement can be quite different. For example, none of us permit jumping on furniture, but
Mm,
Mary's couches will last her an entire lifetime, while Janelle's were broken after a month. Mine get really, really dirty, really, really fast, while Robyn's will remain pristine for a long time. And so I was like writing in my notes, what exactly is she trying to say here? So question number 1, is she responding to Mary's chapter when Mary said, people allow jumping on the furniture, but I don't, and mine will last a lot longer because of it. So which came first, the chicken or the egg there, I think is interesting for her to come right out and say, none of us permitted jumping on the
mm,
furniture. And maybe it's just another way of saying Mary was the enforcer. Like none of us permitted it. It happened because there were
right,
so
right.
many kids coming and going and all that stuff. But, Christine, especially Janelle, were more lax when it came to the discipline, probably because they had so many kids too, so
Right.
close together. It's one thing to have 3 kids that are in their late teens and then you have 2 young ones. It's almost like just starting over again and having built-in babysitters,
Mm-hmm.
which don't get me started, no need for a nanny. But um, they had 6 kids, boom, 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 boom. It truly was a little bit of a gap in there. So I'm really curious in that. Is she trying to point out Mary was inaccurate, or is she saying, listen, none of us permitted it, but like we just have different enforcement ways. And when it comes to enforcement, it is enforced when
Mm-hmm.
you're in Mary's quarters. And it isn't, I found it funny that she said Janelle's were broken after a month. And then for her to say that hers get really, really dirty very fast, while Robyn's will remain pristine for a long time. Why will they remain pristine? Is that, I mean, she said nobody allowed jumping on the furniture. So why do hers get really dirty really fast? Because then they also go on to say, she goes on to kind of go on and say, food was not permitted in the living room either.
Mm.
And Mary, you won't find a crumb anywhere in her living room. However, Janelle will have food spots on her couches and carpeting, which I thought was hysterical. And she'll find wrappers between her couches, like snuck between the cushions. And she said Robyn's is the same way, probably not as many. However, now that's not completely true because we've seen pictures of them sitting in living rooms. When the whole family gets together, they have to sit in the living room to eat.
Right.
So there obviously were times that they ate, but I guess they mean in general, meals are to be served and eaten at the kitchen table and not taken into the living room. Janelle clearly, as she had been admitting in the book, the most lax. It's just based on the fact her furniture broke after a month and her carpet and her sofas are all stained with food.
Right.
So she was kind of like, this is the rule. Hey, guys,
Right.
you shouldn't do that. All right, clean up after yourselves. It's just going to be, I'm trying, but whatever. I just want to hang with y'all.
Right.
She was in her own world. I don't really understand where she's coming from Robyn's perspective on all of this. So I'm interested to know your take on this. Was she throwing herself under the bus a little bit along with the other sister wives and saying Mary's the only one who we had rules, was able to enforce the rules? Or was it a little bit of a dig saying we had rules, but as most households go,
Right.
rules when you have kids are at times meant to be broken. And there are many times when, as a parent, you just go, I'm not dealing with it today. Like, it's just not worth it. You have to pick your battles. And this is not one of them. We're dealing with the fight that happened in school. I'm not caring about where they're sitting to have their snack in the evening. I don't know. I'm thinking she maybe was throwing Mary under the bus just because there seems to be a lot of that in this book,
Right.
of little jabs that are going back and forth. But I don't know. What were you taking from that?
Well, I think it was. I think that it was. I certainly think it was a shot. I do think it was a shot. I don't think it was like she was trying to deliver the death blow, but it was. I think she was kind of giving her a light jab, like a little check, giving her a check jab. And I say that because of two things. One, by her stating, Mary takes the position that your furniture is going to get wrecked because you allow the kids to jump all over your furniture and come in and tear your house up and all that. And I have rules because I want to keep my house nice. Christine, it feels like to me, and I could be wrong, Christine, if you're watching, please correct me. But, or if the kids are watching, please correct me. But I feel like she's saying, ultimately, I have a rule where the kids can't jump on the couches, but my couches are getting used. Like my stuff, my furniture is being used. Like, I don't have museum pieces where I just go out and buy stuff, put it in the house, and you have a whole room nobody ever sits in.
Yeah.
Like, every piece of furniture I buy, because especially with so many people in the house, not just her 6 kids, but she has Janelle's kids coming over. She has married child most likely coming over when Janelle, because Janelle and her kids were all about the same age as Leon. So when they came over, when the other kids came over, I'm sure Leon was in tow. So she's like, look, my furniture is getting used. Janelle's furniture is getting used. And as far as like Janelle having stains on her couch and stuff, I think that might be more reminiscent of you pick your battles. Like you said, I think that when you're looking at the bigger scope of things that you're dealing with, that she doesn't want to sit there after a long day's work. She doesn't necessarily want to come in there and talk about who was in here eating, Cheetos. She just, look, as long as y'all didn't burn the damn house down, this is kind of this is that, when you have multiple kids, like the first child, you basically shrink wrap them and bubble wrap them, and you can't talk to them, you can't breathe on them. You got I gotta sample their food. The second kid is sitting there drinking out the hose out in front of the house. You know what I mean? Like, it's just
true. So true.
The third kid, they have no idea where that child is at. Like,
I know.
He'll come home. It's been 2 weeks. He'll be here soon. Like, you know what I mean? So I think there might be like with Janelle is the fact that she is a little more lackadaisical, but I think it also builds into the fact that she has so many kids and she has so many other responsibilities that, the furniture to her might not seem that important. Like, because after all, and I'm not really trying to give Janelle a whole lot of excuse here, but I'm just saying, like, from my perspective, the real look at it, she's trying to figure out how to keep a roof over everybody's head. So no, I'm not worried about the stains on the couch. I'm worried about whether we have a place to stay next month.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to keep you in a place where you can store your museum furniture.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cut me a little slack.
And then two thoughts on that. One, Mary truly did have museum furniture. I mean, she had those really uncomfortable looking chairs and couch with no arms at all on the side.
Right.
Like you had to sit upright on it.
Right,
There was you couldn't lean either. There were no arms on either side. And I just thought, I mean, they're pretty. They look pretty on a showroom floor, but like that is not at all practical. You're certainly not jumping on it because you're gonna fall right off.
Right.
There's no side at all. And they look like they were even almost like they were probably like a velveteen or something like that. Like they had that look of almost like a green velvet kind of. So yeah, there was that. But also, I think Mary may have shot herself in the foot a little bit by being so strict on the rules in her home, because Christine points out in this chapter, they had a lot of time where they were just with their moms. Like evenings after they would have dinner together. They didn't get together with the whole family except for Fridays and Sundays. And as the seasons went on, we found out that dropped off as well. So they were basically every night together if they were at school or whatnot during the day. They had dinner together at night, and she said, like Christine said, on Sundays we'd go here and we'd go there. And when we were in Lehigh, even she took her kids to her mom's house every Sunday to eat. Now we didn't see that. I mean, there's a lot of stuff we don't see on the show. We see that Annie all of a sudden appeared and then she disappeared. Like she was like one episode she's moving in. I'm like, oh, she is. But they don't even say, they're not even advertising she's moving in. I think it's just because she happened to be there in the camera so much. They're like, you probably should acknowledge the fact that Annie's going to be in this a lot. And then that was it. And then you don't see her at all anymore. Don't know how long it lasted and all that. I mean, not that big a surprise. I mean, I didn't know that Robyn had a nanny all these years until later on. And then you kind of like start to look, you're like, oh yeah, I did see, and she mentioned it in passing, Mindy, but she didn't mention, like she had a sister too. Mindy was the niece. She also had a younger sister who was nannying first, I think, before Mindy. Never saw her. I mean, maybe she was on, but it's just, they have these significant portions of their lives that I think would be interesting to address, especially about Robyn having a nanny. I mean, that was a missed opportunity on TLC's part to at least address it. If they didn't want to be on camera, they didn't have to be, but to talk about it, I think would have been really interesting given the nature of what they keep saying is the benefit of a polygamous family. And that is that the sister wives are there for each other and can watch each other's kids, so they can run to the store or go to a meeting and they always know a sister wife's going to be there. Well, Robyn ends up getting a nanny and Mary has no kids left in her house. Like she's perfectly available to do it. So, I found that interesting. So when they talk about how much time they're spending with their kids and how after dinner it would be homework and then they'd do a game or they'd watch a movie together. Sometimes you would have popcorn nights and whatnot. You realize, okay, it really was separated, even in Lehigh, to a degree. In Lehigh, with Christine leaving on Sundays and taking her kids to go see her mom for dinner every Sunday or afternoon or whatever it was. But definitely when they got to Vegas, it was that way. So I feel like obviously those kids are going to get so much closer to their biological moms during that time. And if their biological moms, who they love unconditionally, are going to have a little bit lax rules in their house, for them to come to your house and for you to be more militant about it is, I think, going to just put more of a wedge between you and the kids, or make them feel a lot more uncomfortable, because obviously their comfort level is hanging out and sort of being free when they're in the house. So I feel like she did herself a little bit of a disservice there in terms of cracking down on the behavior and not being in tune to the fact that their bio moms aren't behaving like this. So what makes them think they're going to be happy and comfortable when they're here. Now, she says, and she's right, she had the quiet house. So if a kid needed a quiet place to study, they could go to Mary's house. And, if they just wanted to get away, I would imagine McKelty would go there, but McKelty never did because she didn't like Mary. But I know McKelty didn't get along with a lot of the other kids. So if you're not getting along with somebody, it would be a great place to go. So it did serve that purpose. And maybe she's happy with that. Who knows? Maybe Mary's like,
Right.
yeah, that's all I want to be. I want to be the pristine house that looks like it's a museum. And when the kids need to come for quiet study time or reading time or just to get away, this is the place that they go to. And other than that, I'm fine.
Right.
I
Well,
don't
because
know.
I think that there's a point where, with regard to Mary having the house, or at least treating her house the way she did,
Mm-hmm.
there's always a question for me, and I don't know Mary, and I'm not sure that this is completely fair to her. So I want to make that very clear. But there's always a question of a certain level of resentment that you may harbor towards, these women who have what you want,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just, and I know if Mary was watching this particular episode and I said that, she would say, no, I love them like they were my kids. And that's not true, because these were my kids just as much as they were. And we were all one family, And I get that. I'm not saying you didn't like them. I'm not saying you didn't love them. I'm just saying that deep down in the cackles of your heart,
Right.
there might be a place where you might feel a little bit of envy and a little bit of jealousy, because these women were able to do something for the family that you wanted to do but couldn't, through no fault of your own.
Mm-hmm.
And by having that certain level of resentment, you try to control the things that you can control, because you couldn't control your body. You feel like your body betrayed you, and this is something that you can control, your environment. And so this is a way for you to be able to have some semblance of controlling your life, so you overdo it. Now, in tandem to what you had said with regard to how the kids would perceive it, the one thing that could happen in this particular situation is that you want to hold out the idea that you're everybody's mom and your house is everybody's house.
Mm-hmm.
But when they come over to your house, they can't act or make themselves at home, because you have so many rules. You can't sit on this couch. If you come in, when I walk into my house, I can go to the refrigerator, get something to eat or drink. I don't have to ask anybody. I just reach into the refrigerator, grab it, and then go have a seat and make it, or prepare it, or do whatever I want to do. But if I have to come over to your house and I have to ask you to go into your refrigerator, I'm a guest. If I have to ask you where to sit in your house, then I'm a guest. This is not my house. And so if it's almost the equivalent of, and I would even equate this to you being like, there being custodial and non-custodial parents. If the child lives at home with their mom and they go over to the dad's house and the dad had these types of rules, then what you're establishing to that child is that you don't live here.
Yeah.
This is my house, and you're a guest in my house.
Yeah.
So the child isn't coming home. So you can't, like, if something were to happen, you can't say, oh, you could always come home. That's not my home. My home is over there with mom, because I think that kind of plays into the whole idea, notion that, by her creating that separation, I understand you want to keep nice stuff in your house. I get it. I've struggled with trying to do that, because especially with teen kids, I understand, like, what the hell? Why you take the wrapper and don't throw it in the trash? Like, I don't understand that. Like, what I mean? I found wrappers. Like, what the hell's wrong with you?
Right. The living room floor is not a trash can. I don't. Why is all this stuff here on the floor after you pick up and leave? Like, do you think fairies come in here? Just funny. Once my kids do, if we wait about an hour and come back, the fairies will have it cleaned up.
Right. You know why? Because the fairies are paying for this shit.
That's right.
I know how much it costs for us to stay in.
That's right. The fairy's trying to keep her sanity, so she's going to clean it up.
This is my stuff. And then you hit them with the curse. One day you're gonna have a child just like it. You know what it's gonna be about. And when you crying, I'm gonna pick up the phone and be like, oh no.
Yeah.
They did what?
Did they
I'm
do
gonna go.
that?
Right? I'm gonna let you get back to it.
Lynn Skinner pointed out she wondered if Mary had the plastic on the furniture, which is funny because when I read that, I thought that about Robyn because of the way she said Mary's living room is spotless without a crumb. Janelle has spots on her floor and couches. I'll find wrappers between the... Oh, no. It was in the first one. Mary's couches will last an entire lifetime. Janelle's are broken in the first month. Mine get really dirty fast, while Robyn's will remain pristine for a long time. And when I first read that sentence, that's exactly what I thought. I'm like, does she cover them with a sheet or does she cover them with the plastic? Like, what is it about Robyn's that does Robyn go, okay, no, you can come in and sit on my couches, but wait, let me get the plastic out first and cover it all first before you come in here. That's exactly where my mind went. So who knows? I don't remember Robyn's couches being that great. Didn't she have like an old grandma floral Davenport kind of couch when she was in the rental that they had to move? It seemed like
in the rental, yes. But by the time they got into the once you get to the from the time they got to the cul-de-sac to the time they went out to Arizona, Robyn was rocking new stuff.
Oh yeah.
Like, yeah, she was rocking all new stuff. But I think that, again, I think it kind of touches on the idea that if people aren't coming over to Robyn's house, because Robyn, when I was saying that you can't reach into somebody's refrigerator, from my understanding, Robyn ran the kind of household you couldn't reach into her refrigerator. Like, you had to ask her permission. Like, there was one time early in season 1, I think it was like episode like 3 or 4 after she came down, and I think it was Gwendolyn had poured some cereal, and Rob was like, "What are you doing with all that cereal?" And she poured the cereal back into the box.
Yeah, that was Isabelle.
Isabelle, yeah. I'm like, if you want to eat cereal, like I've never would tell a child that they can't eat at my house. Like, if you want to eat cereal, as long as you have room for dinner. Like, if I'm making dinner, as long as you can eat your dinner, if you need to get something because you're a little hungry, I don't want you in my house hungry. So I don't want you uncomfortable. But that's just me.
Yes.
And I think that's a home thing. Like, how do you feel like you're home when you're hungry?
Right.
You know, if I was home, I wouldn't be hungry.
Right.
Over here, I'm starving.
Right. And she told the kids they could have a snack, but then she like scolds her and she goes, "That's not a snack. You can't have a bowl of cereal." And she takes it back. I'm like, poor kid. Talk about shaming her. You know, I'm like, just let her have the frickin' cereal.
You know, would have been jacked up if little Isabelle would have looked back at her and said, "It ain't like you paid for it," because, you know, she didn't have a job.
That would have been great. Yeah, that would have been great.
It ain't like you paid for it.
Yeah. This
Cody
isn't from your free
off.
food stamps part of your refrigerator. This was the other part. I can eat this.
You know, Mama Janelle got a job. She didn't want to put this whole thing together. I don't know why you tripping. Like, but Cody would have cut her off. Like, you don't talk bad about my Robyn.
Yeah, that was crazy. I like that Janelle came out swinging. And then she goes on and she starts talking about how the kids can gravitate to a given mom at a given time, which I thought, which I really enjoyed. It was nice, hearing her perspective of it. And we already heard Mary's and we already heard Janelle's perspective. And I don't remember again what Robyn said about this. And maybe she didn't even address it. Oh no, she probably talks about McKelty. I'm sure she does. But I found it interesting that Mary's perspective was all about Isabelle and just like how connected and how bonded and how she needs her. Like, she went on and on and on and on. I mean, she had the longest chapter, and a lot of it was all about how defending her parenting style and then talking about how much Isabelle loved her, which is fine because we know she did. And we saw it on the show that there was a bond between Isabelle and Mary. Now, in Janelle's chapter, Janelle only referred to the fact that Hunter gravitated to Christine during that time that they moved to Vegas, and that she was very, very grateful that Christine was there during that time. I mean, 100%. I mean, we all saw he almost looked clinically depressed. Like he was really cut off from the world and said, I'm just going to school because I have to. And then I come home and I go in my room. That's all I want to do. That's it. And it took a couple of years for him to really break out of that. And so Christine was instrumental. And so I love that Janelle made a point to point out, and here's how one of my kids went to another parent's house and what they did for him. So then Christine in her chapter does the same thing when it comes to Isabelle. She mirrors a story, not quite as in depth as Mary shared, about how much Isabelle wanted to spend time with her, but she did acknowledge that they had a special bond and Isabelle would spend time there, and that it was wonderful because her and Isabelle at times would butt heads. And so during that time, she could say, you can go, although we can talk about that later too, because that was one of her punishments, was to tell Isabelle she couldn't spend time with her. I didn't like that at all. But anyway, that's later on. So I thought that was really great. She did what I liked about what Christine said about Hunter coming to her house is she wrote, during his difficult adjustment to Vegas, he knew he could come to my house and that I would be there for him whenever he wanted. I totally understood why he was feeling troubled. His world was out of control and he needed truly time. And I just thought that was so sweet. And the way she wrote it too, like he just needed truly time to come over, which what I liked about it too, is it was also a little deflection off of herself. You know, it wasn't all about, and he needed me because I was the only one that understood him. You know, we read that with Robyn at times coming out about how great she is and how these kids need her. And she's the only one that really gets them. She instantly, right after that line, deflected and said, it's probably about Truly. She's the baby and he needed to spend time with her. So this... I really enjoyed kind of her perspective on all of this. And I find it interesting, and it's going to be, we'll talk about it next week when it gets to Robyn on her take on it too. But I like how Janelle and Christine both made a point to say, this is one of my bio kids that likes to go someplace else, and this is why. And that's what's so great about Sister Wives. I just feel it's way more authentic than having a chapter talking about how people want to come to me. I'm the great wife. You know, it's more believable when it comes from them saying that they want to go out to another. My kids are my favorite hobby. And that was another favorite line of mine from Christine. I've related to that too, because my kids were my favorite hobby when they were growing up too. I didn't want to do anything else. I've told the story before. I don't know if I've told it with you, but when my girls were about, I don't know, maybe 5th and 7th grade, somewhere around there at one point, we were getting ready to take a trip. And I said, we would do girls' trips. My husband he's a creature of habit, and he doesn't really like change. Therefore, traveling and vacationing, not his thing. So I'm like, that's fine, as long as you're not going to prevent me from ever traveling and vacationing. So I would do girls' trips. And every now and then, as I mentioned last time with my son, it was like a mom and son trip to Disney, or the girls and I would just go to wherever, Cocoa Beach, or just random places, all different places. Okay. So I was at their gym once, and I mentioned to one of the moms we weren't going to be there the next week, and I said, we're going on a girls trip. And I thought it was just implied because I was talking about how my girls wouldn't be there at the gym. And I guess all she heard was girls trip and instantly said, oh, that's so great. And who are you going with? And I'm like, with my daughters, Gabrielle and Gracie. And she's like, oh, and she seemed disgusted. Like, oh, you're taking your kids. And I remember being so shocked by it because I was so stoked I could not wait for this trip. I was so excited about it. And I went home and thought about, wow, I just felt so sad for her because I thought, like, oh, am I missing something? Should I be one? I'm like, I've got all my life to do girls' trips and to, you know, like, but if somebody said you can go with 2 of your girlfriends and we'll give you an extra $1,000, or you could go with your 2 daughters, hands down, I would have gone with my daughter. So like my kids were my favorite hobby. They're my favorite people to hang out with. They were when they were young, and they are as they're older too. So I really liked how Christine said that. My kids are my favorite hobby. I just thought, oh, that's a lovely way to say it. And I'm going to remember that so that I have a way of kind of explaining myself sometimes when I want to spend. I have a girlfriend who doesn't have any kids at all. And so she's always making comments about other people and their kids. So I'm sure it comes about me when I'm not around too. She's seeing her child again and whatever. So she's not going to be able to make it this weekend. She just saw 2 weeks ago. And I would always say, I go, yeah, but you'll drop anything to go with your kids, and she's like, and then she admits, she's like, I just don't get it. I just don't get it because I don't have kids. And if you have the opportunity to hang out with your girlfriends, why are you not going to do it? And anyway, so I go on to this diatribe just to basically say I related to Christine when I read this. And I'm like, yes, I get you, girl. I understand. And those movie nights and the park times and the let's just do things together as a family. I get it. I understand.
Well, because I to touch on the aspect with Hunter, I think that one of the things that I like, or at least I perceive about Hunter that I like in my perception of him, is that he's very close to his family. Yeah. And especially the other kids, his siblings. Like he's all about like that family time and latching onto his family. And with Truly, I think that it was she represented a innocent person whom he could spend time with, and it wasn't necessarily being drugged down or reminded about what he was missing in Lehigh. What was it? Maddie, I think in episode 7 or 8, she said when they talked about moving to Vegas, Maddie was very upset and said, I'm pissed off because me and my girlfriends, we were going to be legends in this town. Like this was going to be the year we were going to be legends. And I think that a lot of the kids at that time had that same sentiment. Like maybe Hunter wasn't as verbose as to say that I'm going to be a legend in this town. But I think in his mind, so much of what he was and his identity, what he was, what he poured into, what he invested was dealing with that particular town or dealing with Lehigh, and to be stripped away from that because of a whole notion or an idea of, the father wanted to move somewhere, so he just packs his family up, to hell with what you have going on. It's because I want to move, me and Robyn want to move somewhere closer so we can be closer to our father, which is why I think they moved to Vegas in the first place. But, the way they did it, and then the same way they did that, moved out to Vegas, is the same way they moved to Arizona. Yeah. Short notice, not a lot of planning. The kids were notified on, quick, we're leaving, and where we go one, we go all. And I don't care what you have going on. I don't care how it affects you. You're going to get over it. You're going to get past it. And some of those moves, in my opinion, looking at it from the outside, not saying I'm the subject matter expert, but in my opinion, I think that at least it seems to me that some of those decisions have led to very detrimental outcomes as far as some of his kids were concerned.
Yeah, those impulsive decisions. He never considered the children at all. You couldn't have considered the children. I'm a little disappointed in Janelle that after everything she went through with Hunter, that she didn't put her foot down and let Gabe stay and finish out his or any, like I know then it gets tricky because then the next one gets to a, like how do you separate them and whatnot. But Maddie was living in Vegas. He could have lived with his sister. She would have taken him in for sure. She took in Isabelle, who's Christine's daughter, when she wanted to, out in North Carolina. So I'm sure that she would have definitely allowed Gabe to stay with her during that time. So that was disappointing to me. But yeah, he made decisions always in terms of what was best for Cody or best for Cody and Robyn. That was it. That was it. And then he just sold it. Like he just came up with lies or came up with a good sales pitch or whatever to try to get the rest of the wives and the kids on board. And in the end, if they didn't come on board, didn't matter. Where we go one, we go all. So I made the decision, and I'm going to try to lead as a patriarchy. I do a very poor job of it, but like I'm trying to, which is why he does such a poor job at it. Like either be a patriarchy or don't be a patriarchy. I think this is what Cody's mistake was so much. Sometimes he's so loosey-goosey and he's like everyone's opinion and everyone's all over the place. Nobody agrees with anyone. He can't figure anything out and he can't make a decision to save his life. And other times, and oftentimes he shouldn't, he puts his foot down and makes a decision and says, this is the way it's going to go because I'm the man. And living in that kind of chaos and instability with a spouse is maddening.
Right. Well, there's power in the appendage. Like, I think that's kind of where it is. You know, I'm the man. I get to make decisions because I was bestowed with the power of forethought. But I think that the part of the issue, because even talking about his leadership style, one of the things that really struck me was the idea or notion that when he makes those types of decisions, part of the reason why I think he's so strong in his decision making when it suits him is because this is what I want. And almost like a child, it's in a way, a lot of ways it strikes me as childish. It's, I want to do this because I want to do it and it's the way I want it. And you say, well, why do you want it that way? It doesn't make sense. Because I want it. And I want to have it my way, dang it. And that's just kind of how we roll through it. And then part of the reason why you don't take full responsibility or accounting as far as the other decisions that you make, because you would think that you would be consistent. If you make decisions on these big things and you make decisions on all things. But part of the reason why you don't want to make decisions on all things is because you don't want to be responsible. And I think that that's a big part of the problem that he had is that he wants all the authority, but he doesn't want any of the responsibility. When they moved out, like I had a clip when he moved out to Arizona and they couldn't figure out how to pay the bills. And all of a sudden he was sitting there, I was like, yeah, moving out here was terrible. It was a terrible idea. Like financially, it made no sense. It's like, yeah, you did that. That's you. You said it was going to be easy. You said you guys were going to make a ton of money. You said that you had all this money and it was going to benefit the family and it was going to be a great idea. Then you get out to Arizona per usual, just like you did in Vegas. You move to a place without a place to stay. And then you wonder why things don't work out the way you want them to. Like in a lot of ways, like they consider themselves cursed, but this is a blessed family because I've never seen somebody operate the way they operate and make these kind of like off the cliff decisions. And somehow you just seem to be okay. Yeah. I've never heard it. Like I would never recommend this for somebody. And to be honest with you, I'll give him credit because Kody is either way crazier than me or he has way more courage than I ever will have. Because I could never move to another state like within 3 weeks or 4 weeks, even a month, 2 months. Not have a address, a permanent address, not knowing how I'm going to make money or how I'm going to be able to pay for myself. I just pack up a bag and say, you know what? I'm going to New York. I'm going to be on Broadway. I'm going to California. I'm going to be in the movies. I'm going to, to Seattle. I'm going to work for Microsoft. Do you know anybody at Microsoft? No. Like, what? What? What is my dream? Like shit. They're like, you can't live like this. I could never do that. I could never. I'll be so crazy. Yeah. I'll be crying all the time. Be sad.
It's like he's trying to catch the next high, He's just sort of like, okay, this has become, I just have ants in my pants now. We've been here for X amount of years. Everything is as it should be now. Things are like pretty much normal. So I have to upset the apple cart because I thrive on chaos and things are now working and working doesn't work for me. I need chaos. I need a job where I'm on the road and not around and don't know really where I'm going and what's happening. That's what I need. I need to not know where the next paycheck is coming in. And I think he gets a thrill off of all of it. And equally the negative stuff with the positive stuff. I think he's just constantly trying to search for the next high that he can legally have that's permitted in his faith. And part of that is getting more wives, too.
Right. Right. Well, you know what I think is interesting, because I didn't really think about it until you started talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
There is a point sometimes, well, because you talk about like or I'm about to talk about the idea of self-sabotage, right? And there is a point where you feel like you don't deserve something, whether it's a relationship or a person, a situation, a job, or whatever the case may be. And you actively go about the business of destroying the opportunity for you to be able to have or do this thing.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, like Cody will be in a place like you jump out of Lehigh into Vegas, no net, nothing prepared.
Yeah.
You somehow land in a situation where you're able to purchase 4 new homes in a cul-de-sac and live close to each other. Everything seems to be going okay. Everything seems to be going fine. You're there for a couple years and you say, you know what? Things are too good. Let me get out of here.
Mm-hmm.
My first initial thought was maybe he's afraid that people are going to start, because a lot of times when people feel like they don't deserve to be where they are, part of the reason why they want to get out is because they're afraid other people are going to recognize that they shouldn't be there.
Mm-hmm.
So they try to get themselves out, whether it's get themselves fired or whatever the case may be, so that they could be the victim. I didn't do this. Uh-oh, she'll be back. Like in that particular case, you say to yourself, I didn't do this. This was okay, there you go.
Sorry.
No worries. No worries. It happens.
I didn't know that would happen. I just noticed my ad blocker was on. So I was like, oh, I should turn that off. And then all of a sudden I was out. And I was like, oh,
I'm the ad.
I know. What did I do?
But so he'll find himself in a situation where things will be going too good, and then all of a sudden he has to come out, or he gets himself fired, or he gets somebody to leave him, because if things are going too good, there's too much of an opportunity. And that's the weird part is I think there's too much of an opportunity for you to get hurt. So from that respect, it's a little bit of a sense of insecurity and cowardice, because you're so afraid that you're going to get hurt that you try to destroy the situation so that way it becomes an acceptable loss. It's not, because if they take this from me, then it's going to devastate me. But if I lose it this way, it'll hurt, but I'll be okay with it. And because there's a lot of moves that he makes that otherwise just doesn't make sense. Yeah. It just doesn't make sense.
No, that's a really good point. That's a really good point. As people start to figure him out, he'd just leave. Like just go start over new again, and I can dupe a whole group of new people for a very long time until they start figuring me out.
Right.
And then I'll just pick up and leave again. Yeah. And I mean, they were nomads their whole lives leading up to this. Like that was the longest they'd ever been in one place. And I'm sure because of Robyn saying we're not going to move in 3 years, because when they got those houses, do you remember how Mary's like, well, we're not going to be there for that long. And Robyn's face was like, what are you talking about? They're like, yeah, we don't stay any place very long. She's like, what? So the fact they were there for 7 years, I think, was Robyn's doing, until when he's just like, Robyn, I need to go again. She's like, all right. Where do I want to go? Where does my son want to go to college? I'll let you know where we can move to.
Right. Well, because I think once Dayton had gotten to the school in Arizona, that was a wrap. Like, because she wasn't letting him move by himself. Yeah. So, she wasn't willing to cut the strings, which is weird too, because on one hand, like, you uprooted a whole family. It's insane to me. You uprooted a whole family, kids about the same age, screwed everyone. They're schooling, because I have to go with where my son is at. But then they could have went to LSU, like he could have went to UNLV with because I think when Aspen went there, I know Logan went there, so he could have been there with his siblings. But I don't know. I know he went for a particular program, which is why he went to the school he went to. But it's just crazy to me that if it's so important that you're around for him, then you either have to let him, like, you have to cut the strings, let the boy grow up. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
You gotta
she's
let
not
him
going to
grow
be
up.
around for the rest of his life. So
Right.
she needs to set up whatever parameters she needs to. She can pay the sister or the nanny or whoever to go live with him. Oh, and not uproot her whole family and everybody's family for Dayton, who's eventually going to have to move out on his own anyway. I wonder what the
Right.
program was. Do you know what program was it that made him go there?
I knew at one point. I have to watch the episodes
Okay.
because I know because they did say it during the course of the show that they
Okay.
have like this specialty program that he wanted to attend, but I can't
Mm,
recall what it was.
yeah.
But
I remember
you
that.
know, I think that just goes to like the precept of the way you approach your parenting, like the way
Mm,
I grew up and the way I try to raise my kids. One of the big things that you try to do as a parent, like my one job, my one job is to make sure that my kids are prepared to exist without me. Like
mhm.
that's like everything else is just, you know, I want them to be good people. I want them to be productive members of society and all that good stuff.
Yeah.
But ultimately, my main focus is to make sure that they can survive if I'm not around. Like that
Yes.
they can continue, that they don't have to crawl into the casket with me because they no good by themselves. You know,
Right. Right.
and I think
Yeah.
that with Dayton, he loses a little bit of that. If she's always going to be right there to hold his hand and make sure he goes to classes and make sure that he has everything, he's never going to have the opportunity. You got to let the boy grow up. You got to let
Yeah.
him grow, you know. Otherwise, you know, especially, well, we'll get into it because I'll even do that kind of as a maybe like a future segue. But especially because his family places so much emphasis on sex and sexuality when it comes to the girls,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
prepare the girls to get married. Oh, we're going to keep you chaste and got to make sure that you're wearing certain levels of clothes. Christine even describes it as the one thing that it seems they can all agree upon is making sure that the girls have a certain level of modesty. And all that
Mhm.
is to prepare them for the, well, for the cyclical oppression of marriage, institution of marriage, prepare their arms for the shackles of marriage, but and bondage. But it always amazes me that there's so much emphasis in preparing them for marriage, where one of the things that you should be doing, if this is what you believe, and this is my challenge, if this is what you believe, then shouldn't you be making sure that your sons are prepared to take care of families? And that would mean that you don't follow him to Arizona. If anything, you
Right.
put him out and you get him ready so that way he's able to take on a family and provide for that family the
Yeah.
same way you're setting your daughters up to be provided for. You should be setting your sons up to be providers. And I
Yeah.
don't see that consistency. And maybe
Mhm.
I'm wrong, but let me know what you think.
Yeah, no, I agree with that 100%. And if she felt that he wasn't there yet, if it was because of his autistic spectrum disorder, had him in a place that he was not ready yet to go do that on his own, then he shouldn't have gone to do that on his own. Like he should have
Mhm.
stayed home and he should have done some online schooling until she felt like he was mature enough or had enough social skills or whatever the actual part that was preventing her from allowing him to go, until they could work on that and develop that skill in him and then let him go. Like, I mean, he didn't seem like he's the kid that's going to be joining the fraternities and all the social clubs and that anyway. So it's not like he's missing out on it. He can start it 2 years later than
Mhm.
everybody else. That's okay. So I just feel like she just didn't really take his individual needs into consideration.
Right.
She just coddled him and at the detriment of the rest of the family,
Mhm. Mhm.
unfortunately. Yeah.
Actually, this is one of the ironic parts about like because I guess we can get into the whole thing. I'll read the I guess the intro.
Okay.
Um, and then the okay. One of the major problems I'm having these days is with how my older girls, Aspen and McKelty, dress. They insist on wearing shirts with low necklines that show an indecent amount of skin.
Mm.
All of the adults agree that even a suggestion of cleavage way oversteps the boundaries of what is appropriate. But the girls keep trying to get away with revealing too much.
Mm.
But she also says something interesting. Again, it always kind of amazes me the hyper focus that's placed on the young ladies' sex and sexuality, and almost the complete ignoring of the young men and teaching them sexual responsibility. You know what I mean? Like, oh, you got to teach the girls to be chaste and make sure they maintain their purity, and the boys will fall in line because the boys should want to do it, but and they're going to try to do it because it's in their nature. But we're going to teach the girls to repel the boys. Like, you have to teach it. Like, and this is just from my perspective. You have to teach young men to be responsible just as much as you would teach the young ladies to be responsible, especially if you think and you hold a position, again, consistency. If you hold a position that your son is going to be so great, so wonderful, he's going to go to school. And somebody mentioned Dayton went to school. He has 2 degrees. He goes to school. He gets 2 degrees. He has all these job opportunities, has all this money, these opportunities to be able to make a certain level of money. That kid is the bank. You always protect the damn bank. You teach them how to protect the bank. So if you have certain levels of responsibility for yourself, and this goes beyond like just the idea of you having the mentality where you say, beyond just the sexual morality, if you just want to break it down to keeping yourself, brass tacks safe as far as the money is concerned, be responsible. Because if you lay down with the wrong ones, you're letting the wrong one into the bank. They just don't hang keys out. Like, you go down to Fort Knox. If you go down to Fort Knox tomorrow, and where they keep the gold there, you say, or the reserve, go down to the reserve, the mint, go to the mint and try to get into the door. If you show up and you don't have the right keys, passcodes, and identification, you might not make it out of there alive. Like, forget. You know what I mean? They don't just like, oh, come on in.
Yeah.
You had a good time at the bar. You seem a little intoxicated. Come on in, have a wild Tuesday. Like, nobody does that. So teach these young men to be responsible for themselves too. Because I'm also, I'm kind of going off a little bit, but I'm also kind of getting, like, one of my personal pet peeves is always when you talk to guys and they say, oh, crazy baby mama, and how she always going for child support, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But at the same time, one of the things that has always struck me is, bruh, you made decisions too. You made decisions. She was probably crazy. She didn't just get crazy when she crapped the kid out. She was crazy the whole damn time. And you were okay with that cut of crazy. But now you got to start paying the tab on that crazy. Now all of a sudden it's a problem and it's an issue. Yeah. So you have be responsible all the way through. Be consistent. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it is interesting that is a consistent theme throughout the show. They did have one episode where the girls and the boys were sat down together, but the majority of the time it was always talking to the girls and telling them what they shouldn't do and how they shouldn't dress and how they, because boys can't control themselves. Like, I don't really understand. There was no, like, the boys weren't told anything like that. It was always their fault. So they couldn't do this and they couldn't dress a certain way. And in the book, they come right out with it too. Although I did find it interesting that, again, Christine goes through how each wife would handle the different situation. And when she said the way Mary would handle it is she wouldn't let them buy the clothes in the first place. And I had to agree with that because I'm like, listen, if they as a family all agree there is a certain kind of clothing that's not acceptable, and we saw it on the show when McKelty leaned over the one time and her cleavage was showing, that's what's not acceptable. They don't allow they're supposed to be having the whole undergarment stuff on, quite frankly. So cleavage is across the line for their faith. Fine. That being said, they shouldn't have anything in their closet that shows cleavage. End of story. Have cute things, have trendy things, but you don't have to go there for that. So that was the one time that I just thought, yes, because Christine's like, well, Mary wouldn't even allow it in the closet. I'm like, well, that's kind of right. Like, if you're having a hard time with her wearing it, why does she have it? Like, where did
Right.
it come from if it's not something she's allowed to wear? And that was just like around the house they were on that given day. So she's like, oh, they're always trying to push the boundaries. And I'm like, well, there's no boundaries to push. When I think about like my kids' closet, there were times I put my foot down and I said, no, like, I don't know. I know that's the fashion right now, but not in our house. Like, it's not going to go on your body and go into school with that. No, that's really, really short. And and there's school rules too. Your fingers have to hang down. It has to be beyond the fingertip. So if it's good for the school, it's good for our house too. You don't have to have anything shorter when you're going out with your friends at other times. It's not necessary. And when you're wearing skirts, you need to be wearing shorts under them anyway. So consider it a skirt right from the get-go. Bottom line. So I don't know why they just didn't have it in the house, and they would have avoided a lot of these lectures and the punishment. And, I take the clothes away and I'm like, well, good, take them away. You're not supposed to be wearing them. Take them away. That's fine. Take them away. I don't care. Oh, but I 100% agree with where you're coming from. There's way too much in the show and the book all about the problem with the girls and how the girls they don't really come out and say promiscuous per se, but bending the rules and wearing things they're not supposed to be wearing and all that. And there's no responsibility for the boys in this whole situation. Even when it comes to dating, I'd be interested in knowing who they were willing to bend the rules for and not bend the rules. I mean, it seems pretty clear McKelty was one they weren't willing to bend the rules for, although Christine puts a story in here on how Christine did go to a date. She went to a dance with a date, but it was just a friend. And they, ahead of time, met with the boy. Christine said she'd been friends with him for a while and she already knew that. So Cody met with him too. And then they took her phone and they went through all of her text messages to see what was in there about the boy, which is Oprah approved, by the way. We learned that on Oprah before I even had kids. I remember watching her and her saying, you are in control of those kids. And now that we have telephones and social media, it is your responsibility as a parent. Don't say, she's like, absolutely not. Do you, and all the experts that she had on her show were agreeing with it. Because I remember learning this before I even had kids and saying, it is your responsibility to know what's going on with your kid. And if you just want to say, oh, it's their privacy, I'm not going to invade. Well, then when they get into trouble down the road and when things go left, you can't say, I didn't know. Like, I just wish I would have known, when it's your responsibility to be on top of them. So, although I never really did take my kids' phones and go through them, but if I felt like there was a situation that warranted it, absolutely, I would have gone through it. Like, I always had that in the back of my mind. And my kids knew that that was a threat that might come to fruition at some point. Like, they had to give me all their passcodes. Like, give them to me. I felt like that was enough. You give me your passcode, and at any given time when you're asleep at night, I might come in and use that passcode and check on your phone. And if that passcode doesn't work anymore and you haven't told me that you changed it, there will be ramifications and punishments. And that's all you have to do.
Then the phone is gone. Like,
the fear of somebody might be reading this will keep them pretty clean.
Right. Well, I think that kind of goes hand in hand with the idea, notion that, above anything else, you just have to know what you're dealing with. And I think that not all rules or every situation is applicable for every child. Not every kid needs you to go through their phone. Not every kid needs to get yelled at, screamed at, hollered at, whatever the case may be. Some kids, you can give them a look, and that's all it takes. And you're good to go. Some kids, it's just a conversation. Some kids, you got to be on their back. You know what I mean? Because they just are wired different. But it's just, you have to recognize your kid for what they are. And and I have my kids, like you, my kids have had cell phones and all that and social media. I can't recall the time when I was going through their stuff, but it's always understood that if I ask you to let me see your phone or whatever the case may be, I don't expect the argument. Like, we're not doing the whole, you can't check my stuff. It's privacy. And what about my constitutional rights? And all that. Like, I don't do that. Like,
no constitution in this house.
Right.
It's a dictatorship.
Right. we did not do that. You know, as long as I'm paying a bill, and you
That's
living under
right.
my roof, then and that's one of the things too. Because I understand where Oprah is coming from. Because you know, you should have some modicum of understanding what's going on with your kids. Because truth of the matter is that especially at certain ages, like I watched was it Unexpected, but the teen mom thing, and when they have the kids, the reality of it is they have these children so young, and the mothers and fathers are so immature that the parents now have children.
Yeah.
I mean, they just have their kids' so they, you know. So you have to be on it, because ultimately you will be the one that's responsible for what happens in your house. They come in with a baby, you might be the one raising it, and by might, you're probably going to be paying for everything. So
Absolutely.
yeah, but
I did find it rough though that one of their rules was that they couldn't go on a date until they were 18.
Right.
They couldn't even go out in a group as co-eds until they were 16. Like that was, so I just found that to be like intense. And then 18, that's just hard. I mean, by then you're graduating. So like all those dances and all the, you know, like,
right.
and in a group didn't mean like we're a couple and we're a couple and we're a group. It meant like literally it's a group. Here's just 9 girls, and like I might be dating or, you know, interested in the one boy, and this one might be interested in that, but it's just a whole group of friends. So, which, you know, is great. And I like that philosophy up to 16. Like theirs is that starts at 16, and then at 18 you can go on a date. I just find it hard being that they were in public schools. I think it would have been fine if they were still in their AUB private small church school, that everybody had those same basic philosophy and rules in that. But sometimes you just like, I don't know. You gotta look at your kids too and just decide, do you trust them or don't you trust them? And you're right. It really comes down to the individual kids when it comes to that, as opposed to saying 18 is when you can date. And I do think it is good that they do talk about how that became a problem in the family when they were teens, that they were changing the rules for different ones. But I think that's great. They were individualizing the circumstances based on the kids. And if some kids weren't getting what other kids were getting at that age, well, then that's a great opportunity to sit down with that kid and say, let's talk about why your sister was able to do X, Y, and Z when she was 17, and we're not permitting you to do that yet. So, you know, let's discuss, what are the behaviors you're showing us? What are the behaviors that she was demonstrating at that age? What can you do to get there, or to prove to us that you're responsible enough? Because we're only making these rules for your best interest. We only make them because we really love you, and we're really trying to protect you from yourself as well as other people out there. And until we can see that you can make sound decisions and judgments, we're going to have to pull in the reins on you a little bit more. So like, hopefully that all happened, and it wasn't just, no, you're not mature enough. Like, hopefully there was a good sit down and explanation and a plan for like, this is what we need to see. And, you know, and they were a part of contributing to creating that plan, not that it was just given to them. So I don't know. It's kind of hard to see them being that eloquent with them, and certainly not Cody. He would just be like, these are the rules and you're not ready. And that would be the end of it. But
because he is the manly man. But they also had a thing where I think that the whole Magic 18, because that should be around the time that they would be ready to get married. Because earlier on, I think it was when McKelty brought somebody home, the whole conversation was essentially, you should be dating to get married, not dating for fun, not dating. So when you go out on a date, it's for the specific mission of, I'm going to potentially marry this person. I think that there's some credence to that, but at the same time, one of the things that I think is forgotten about is that when they're young, especially depending on the child that you're dealing with, because again, a lot of this is on a case-by-case basis. You understand that like some kids are a lot more boy crazy or girl crazy than other kids. So you have to take that into account. But at the same time, when they're young, there's an opportunity for them to get to experience romantic relationships or situations or scenarios without the pressures of an adult situations happening. So like at 14, 15, 16, 17 years old, if they go out on dates, the expectation that the young man is going to actually have or encounter have sexual activity with them is significantly lower than when a young person is 25, 26 years old. Sex is on the table at that point. Like it's a question of like, are we doing this? When are we doing this? How are we doing it? When you going to let me do it? Et cetera, et cetera. I've gone out with you so many times. Here's my expectation. That is a conversation, more of a conversation than when they're 15, 16 years old. They might be holding hands and maybe they're kissing or something, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're doing everything. So you could be denying them the opportunity to be able to experience these types of relationships and learn to navigate these types of relationships in a safe situation.
Yeah.
You know, because your kid could go out on dates. You drive them. You know, you want to go if you want to go out on a date with little Jimmy, you tell Jimmy we'll meet him at the movie theater. You know, you drop them off. You know, let them watch them go in. Maybe buy your ticket, go sit in the back of the theater. I don't know, depending on how crazy you are with it. But give them that opportunity. If you trust them, if you don't, then you don't.
Right.
You know.
True.
But Teresa Skinner with the 49 super sticker.
Thank you, Teresa.
But fantastical. Teresa Skinner in the house. Because she talks about like how they punish them. But again, they did talk about like the problem with the sex stuff. I did think it was interesting the way they talked about it. It said Mary wouldn't let the girls buy the shirt. Wait. Oh, Mary wouldn't let them buy the shirt. Janelle wouldn't notice the shirt, the low skirt, unless it was unbelievably drastic because Janelle was from the world. Janelle is from the world. She knows what it is.
Yeah.
Which probably created problems with I can see her face.
Maddie.
Yeah, because
she probably got away with a lot more than McKelty could.
Right.
Yeah.
And she's walking around with it, and McKelty tried to do the same thing, and all of a sudden she's in trouble. So I'm sure.
And apparently Aspen too. She said Aspen and McKelty were both pushing the boundary. So I wonder if Maddie was like, well, I can. So
right. And that's a natural thing, especially as young folks start to understand the power of their sexuality. Because it's a powerful thing. Like it's a very powerful thing, and you realize it's so much, especially at that age. You realize so much vacillates on your sexuality. It does seem like a lot, and just learning to master that and navigate that world, I think, is important as well.
Yeah.
So it's not just a matter of you teaching them how to keep it from somebody, but you teach them how to exist in their bodies.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
But my favorite part was where it says Robyn would just give them a lecture on purity.
I know. I laughed out loud when I read that. It was almost.
And shots fired on that one.
That was shots fired. What season did she do the purity speech? Had she already done the purity speech at the point that this book came out?
No, that wasn't until later.
So this was an MO. All right, this was her MO of talking about purity. Interesting that she would pull that out that early on, knowing her background. So she must have that was her mantra that she was going to stand by, because she was a woman who got pregnant before she ever got married. And she's a woman who's coming in as a divorced woman as well with kids. So in order to defend that, she's going to stand on the platform of purity.
Right.
So that is interesting.
Yeah, I think that's a source of overcorrection though.
Yeah.
I think that, you made, things happen, decisions were made that probably weren't the best, but don't scare your kids away from And that's one of the things that that's at the root of my big disagreement with a lot of the approach that they use, especially for the young ladies, is that instead of teaching them to embrace their sexuality, you're teaching them to be afraid of it. It should be something that you avoid. It should be something that you try to hide back and repress. And this is, like I said, the difference between, because you're not saying that to the boys. Like, you should be running away from your sexuality. You should only be trying to do this when you're trying to make babies. And you know what I mean? Like, that's not something you're doing for them. So it's weird to me that they're pushing that on these young ladies.
Yeah. I can appreciate that. Lynn, was it Lynn Skinner or was it Teresa? I think it was Teresa, maybe. Yeah, Teresa Skinner. I got two Skinners in here. Teresa Skinner said they also wanted to dress like their peers in school. And I have to say, I did the same thing. My mother was so strict on what we could wear when we went to school. And I went to a Lutheran school through 8th grade. And then I went to the public high school. Now, all through that time I was at the Lutheran school, there were no uniforms that were there. And I don't even know if there was a dress code. It wouldn't have mattered in my family anyway, because my mother was so conservative on what we could wear. But one of the things that she would say is we were never allowed to wear jeans to school. It wasn't appropriate.
Wow.
Okay, we're in the 80s now. So I'm like, everybody's wearing jeans. What are you talking about? And there was no such thing as like trendy, cool dress up clothes. You know, it was just, you're either in athletic wear and workout Jane Fonda kind of stuff, or you're in big sweatshirts and jeans. And so, and of course, while I was in school, we went through the phase of very, very tight jeans to all of a sudden the really, really baggy jeans. So like I was there sort of like in my high school into college. By the time I got to college, they were all the big baggy jeans. And prior to that, it was the really tight jeans. So I couldn't wear them ever all the way through 8th grade. And then I went to a public high school and my mother still refused to let me wear jeans. So what would I do? I had my Jordache jeans rolled up, my one pair, because who needs more than one when you can't wear them to school? You know, you know, and by the time you get home, you're just lounging around the place. It was like when you'd go out with your friends on the weekend every now and then, roll them up in the bottom of my backpack, walk the 2 miles to school every day, make sure I left early enough that people wouldn't see me in my dress slacks. And I'd get into the bathroom, put on the Jordache jeans, go through the day, and then be late going home. My mom was at work at that point. And so the majority of the kids were out of school because it was a large public high school too. Needed the majority of the people who would know me gone, or anybody who would see me on the walk, because I had the two-mile walk home. So all these people are going to see me too. And I didn't want to be wearing completely different pants, but I also didn't want to get home and run into my mother.
Right. You all from work?
That's right. How'd you get home already? And she would come home pretty close to when I got home from school. Like usually there's enough time, but there's always that fear she's going to leave a little bit early. So I can sympathize with them in that regard. Of you're in a situation, you're in a public school, and everybody's dressing this way, and your parents are saying, "Well, yeah, but no, not you. We're going to have different requirements for your attire." Why?
Right. Well, I gotta stand out. Yeah.
The Jordache jeans were really tight. Because that was the thing. That was the thing.
Well, you got caught there and asked why you wearing your play clothes. Remember that was the thing. Like,
yes.
Why you wearing your play clothes?
So true. So true.
But yeah, it's because I can even sympathize with that. Like I understand, like you want to try to hold your kids out to a certain standard and all that good stuff. But like I said, at some point you have to give your kids a modicum of freedom to be able to navigate the world so that they understand their limitations within the world. Like, because you can protect them into a bad situation. I think you can get to a point where you don't teach them how to do certain things or move in certain circles.
Yeah.
That they just find themselves in a bad situation.
True. So true.
Yeah.
I found interesting going on in this chapter where how Christine says, over the years, Janelle and I have developed a symbiotic relationship in which we naturally gravitate towards helping each other out. And she goes on to explain how, like, she cooked for the kids while she was at work, and, and she would handle finances and everything. And that they just really developed a system that was a well-oiled machine between the two of them. And then we go back to Kody, season 18, complaining about the fact that Christine is getting together with Janelle, maybe even season 17. But that she's spending all this time with her and she never liked her. They never got along. They weren't like, no, she would say something negative about her, as you would any sister or any friend that you're spending that much time with. That, yeah, at times you might complain to behind closed doors, assuming everything was on the down low, which we find out later it wasn't. Kody was going and blabbing to the otherwise, but they thought it was a safe place to just kind of let it out so that they could move on with the sister. Yeah, it's not worth creating a friction and problem with the sister wife. It's not that big a deal. Let me just complain to Kody. I'll get it out and it'll be fine. Well, then he eventually starts whispering and talking to everybody else and causing all kinds of problems. But we read back here in the book, this is after season 1. This book came out around season 2. Janelle and I have developed a symbiotic relationship in which we naturally gravitate towards helping each other out, and then goes on to expand and explain it. So she's saying, write her own words. No, we've been friends for a long time. And actually, after the fallout with Mary that they both had, then they kind of gravitated to each other. And she goes on to explain, we each have 6 kids. We, they are the same ages. We're experiencing the same kind of things. And yet I don't want to go to work full time and she doesn't want to be home full time. So this is all just working out perfectly, which then, and I don't know if you want me to jump here yet, or we could save this to
yeah, that's fine.
Okay. With her mentioning that, okay, so now they're in Vegas and they're in the rentals when she wrote this book. And she says, looking into the future, because they hadn't found the property yet at the point that they're writing. This seems pretty clear in the book that they're all in the rentals. They're just in rentals. They're trying to find that perfect situation where, maybe they could find houses together in a cul-de-sac, or maybe they could find a big home somewhere, which they're not going to find in Vegas. But they're trying to figure out what to do and what to find. And this is what she writes. Looking into the future, I would like to move back into a house with a sister wife, which is like shocking in and of itself because she's so anti-sister wife. But she explains, she goes on to qualify. I can't believe this is in the book. All these seasons, I never read this book. Never got it from the library. No, I'm just so mad at myself. All right. She goes on to say, I miss the communal aspect of our plural lifestyle. And I totally get that, because they really did work symbiotically, as she puts it, together. And she says, recently, Janelle and I have been looking for houses together. I was like, what?
Right.
You and Janelle were looking for houses together. And then she goes on to say, we are a good team. She is practical and can take care of the finance, administration, and bills, while I can take care of the cooking, cleaning, and crafts. And so she, like, in case there's any confusion, like, oh, maybe she didn't really, she really meant it, because she goes on to say, our 2 groups of 6 children are all close in age and would absolutely love to be under one roof again. Right. So they were trying to look at that time. This is the situation. Kody was so upset, like at Christmas, when like they were going to get together, because that's 12 of the kids all together, which is essentially the majority of the family. All the way back then, the 2 of them were looking to maybe just move in together. And then she goes on to say, it's, probably not going to happen, simply because they would need 9 bedrooms in order to be under one roof, which in Vegas would literally just be a mansion, because they're not making Plig style homes. And she said, it helps that both Robyn and Mary like having their own space, and they prefer to have their own houses.
Right.
Boom, right from the beginning, she calls Robyn out. And we knew that Mary really enjoyed her own space. She said it multiple times on the show. But she calls Robyn out right from the beginning. Robyn wanted to have her own house, which is probably explaining the fact that she wouldn't move in with them in the Lehigh house either, which we all
Right.
knew. But like Christine really she calls her out right here and says, Robyn wants to have her own house. End of story. So Janelle and I might look for our own house. Well, Kody would have never allowed it to happen because that really would have been the family house. And then there would have been Mary and Leon being older wasn't going to be around long. And then Robyn separate from the rest of the family. And I think he really wanted each of them to be separate because Robyn wanted her own place. Let me put everybody in their own place. So we don't have the family together and Robyn separate. We keep everybody separate from each other. I just found that fascinating that she wrote that in the book. I think that she said so much with that. Did you all know that? Did you all know that Christine, I mean, I guess if you haven't read the book, you wouldn't know, but that Christine and Janelle were like moving in together?
Yeah, I didn't know she had considered moving in because there was a point where, because there's a couple things. The first thing is when Christine gave such strong protestation against moving in with the family again, moving under one big roof, there were a couple points that she made. Like if you really listen to what she said, what she was complaining about was, one, I don't want to have a situation where I'm sitting here looking at functional marriages, a functional marriage, talking about his marriage with Robyn, and I'm sitting there jealous because I don't have that. The other part of it was, I feel like for the first time, this is something she said, I feel like for the first time, I'm a good mother. And it kind of struck me, like when she said it, it was like, wow, Christine has been the mom of the entire family the entire time. So for her to say or take the position that, this is the one time she feels like she could actually be a good mom, what does that mean? And I think that if you pair it out, there was a story I was watching. I think it was either a play or maybe a movie, but there was a book. It was a book. There was a woman who was an Irish woman who was taking care of her lord's children. Like she was a nanny. And she had just had a baby, so she was full, and she was able to breastfeed. And so as part of her responsibility, she would take her lord's child and feed that baby first. So that baby would get the good milk and her child would get what's left. And by her spending so much time with the Lord's child and feeding that child grew up to be big and strong, where her child grew up to be sickly. You know what I mean? And I think that in some respects, that's kind of maybe the way Christine perceived it. She spent so much time nursing and taking care of other people's children that she felt like she was neglecting her own. And things weren't being handled with her kids under her roof. Which is actually reflective in the sense that she said that McKelty would go over to Robyn's house for comfort, or Isabelle would go over and see Mary because she couldn't, because they couldn't connect on that level. And she says, she talks even now about how she had such a close relationship with Logan when he first came out, Hunter, Garrison, Gabe, and she had these close relationships with Janelle's kids because she was taking care of Janelle's kids.
Right.
And so when you look at that, I understand why Christine took the position that she took. I get it. And I also understand when Janelle, and this gives some color to what Janelle had said, because Janelle was always pro one house. And so I guess in her mind, of course we're going to move in one house. We were ready to move in one house when it was just me and Christine. So why wouldn't we do it when we could bring the whole family?
Yeah.
And that's where you had the two sides. And to answer the question of like Mary and Robyn, I think Mary, she said early on in Vegas when they were in the rentals that she liked having a one house that was kind of far from everybody. Yeah. Because when Cody came over, he was forced to spend time with just her. And so that was an opportunity for her to be able to usurp his time. As far as Robyn is concerned, Robyn, I think, when she looked at that big house in Lehigh, and they were all in Lehigh together, and she was off to herself. Was it Harry Houdini? He said, it's not enough that I win, but all others must lose. And with Robyn, I think when she looked at the Lehigh house, she looked at it and said, well, it's not enough that I'm happy and I got all Cody's time, but I don't want him over there hanging out with them and the kids able to hang out with each other. You know what I mean? My kids got to sit there by themselves. I don't want them over there with them, but I don't want them being able to deal with each other without my kids being present. So she broke them all apart.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so I say all that to say this. As much as Kody argues and says that, oh, Christine ruined everything because she didn't want the one house like he did during Look Back. Oh, I wanted the one house and she absolutely wouldn't do it. She flipped out and I literally said to her. And he said all that. I say, bruh, Mary and Robyn didn't want one house either. Because you can't point to one episode where you can say that they were for it or against it, because neither one of them said what they wanted. They just sat there and said, what do you want, Christine? Oh my goodness, Janelle is so upset. I'm so confused that I could go either way. That's where both of them were. And both of these women are not the type of people that if it was something that they wanted, they were going to keep their mouth shut.
Right.
Neither one of them would have stayed quiet. If they wanted one house, Mary, they would have had, hell, Robyn wanted one house, they would have been living in one house.
Yep.
You know, 100%. Where we go one, we go all.
Yeah. Yep. You're absolutely right. We never saw when that whole one house thing was presented and they would pan over to Robyn, she was deadpan. She wasn't giving off any reactions, which pretty much made it very clear she wasn't excited about it either. I think she was just as shocked. I actually think that Kody thought that would be a surprise for everybody.
Right.
I don't think Robyn knew anything about it either. And she was just like, oh, hell no. This isn't going to happen. No.
I'm not doing that.
Yeah. So I'm just going to stay really quiet and very still and just let it play out, because eventually Christine is going to put an end to it.
Right.
And I don't have to give my 2 cents at all.
Well, because I think that because I think that you have like the whole thing with Robyn and that when she stays quiet, I think that if she gave her subtle support to Kody behind the scenes, because I think that's where a lot of their conversations happen. If she gave her subtle support to Kody behind the scenes, it would have gave him the courage and dexterity to be able to stay in there and get it done.
Yeah.
But because she didn't throw him that support, all she had to do was sit back, stay quiet, and let Christine work. You know, because if she would have came out and said, no, this is something we need to do because it'll improve the family, then Kody would have just tag teamed off of Robyn and they would have pushed this step. It was almost like when they were talking about leaving Utah or going back. They were in Arizona. They were talking about going back to Utah. And they were having a conversation on Coyote Pass. I think, Christine, I think we should all go back to Utah. Kody looks over and Robyn, absolutely not. And we're going to stay here. And she's, she's planting her flag. I didn't see that strength when it came time to move into the one house. I didn't.
Yeah. And it was the same thing with Cottonwood in Coyote Pass. She wanted Coyote Pass. Everyone was leaning towards Cottonwood. And then Tony speaks up and he's like, one of the only one raising his hand saying he likes Cottonwood. And he's like, am I the only one raising a hand? They're like, oh, why you, Tony? He's like, well, I just think it's, it's just, he goes, well, it's not just me, it's Robyn too, who's now hiding behind Tony.
Right,
he's like, where is she? Oh, back here. And she's like, yeah, I'm just reserving my comments for later. Like, oh, all right, Robyn, which basically means, yes, I want Coyote Pass. I don't want this one. I'm reserving my comments for later because I'm not agreeing with anybody right now. So I'm hoping, just like what happened when we moved here, it's all going to work out in the wash. And eventually we're just going to end up there without me ever having to express my opinion whatsoever. Or I'll do it in private to Kody tonight beneath the sheets. And that's when it'll come out. I'm not saying this in front of everybody else. I want it to come across like it was Kody's idea and opinion. Yeah. Yeah, she's very deceptive.
Right. And I will say that, like, I think that she mastered the idea and notion that she understands that in order for Cody to be able to do something, he has to feel like it's his choice.
Mm-hmm.
And she gives him the space to where he can save face in thinking that, okay, even though this is Robyn's idea, this is something she wants me to do, she doesn't call me out or call me onto the carpet when everybody else is around. So therefore, I can make it seem like it's my idea and I'm still the patriarch and I'm still the leader. Like, she understands that part of it. Like, I think you can say a lot, and I've always held the position that you can say a lot about Robyn. You can call her whatever you want to call her. But at the end of the day, the one thing you can't say about Robyn is that she's a dumb woman.
Yeah,
she's not
true.
dumb.
She's street smart.
Right. Conniving, manipulative, sure. Dumb, not at all. Like, she's not a dumb person. Don't underestimate her because she'll get you.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of it too.
True. So true.
Yeah, but did you have anything else for the chapter? I think that was everything.
That is, I think, all. Yep. No, that's all I have.
Oh, okay.
Those are all my notes.
Yeah. So overall, what did you think about the like a summation, I guess? What did you think about the chapter from Christine?
It was good. I liked it because I was so disappointed in Janelle's last week that I appreciated this. I appreciated some details I didn't know before. That's what I love about it. When I read something that I'm like, I had no idea. And that happened a couple times in this very, very short chapter that we have. But yeah, it happened a couple times. Oh, the one thing before that we didn't mention earlier on in the chapter I have here, Christine made reference to disciplining the kids and giving out individual disciplines that are appropriate for each of the kids given the situation, which is interesting because Mary said the same thing. And I felt like she was trying to get back at Mary during this time, that maybe the punishment that McKelty received didn't fit the crime. And that's why they had this tiff. But I don't know. So, it's kind of like the same situation as Christine saying, no one's allowed to jump on furniture. That's the rule. Right. I'm like, oh, that's not what other people are saying here. So I don't know what to believe. It's the sister wives book. We never quite know exactly who to believe. But I did find it interesting. Her example for her kids is when Aspen leaves the car messy, she has to clean it out and vacuum it. Fair, good punishment, like it. When McKelty wears immodest clothes, I take him away. Okay, hopefully permanently, so we don't go through this again. But okay, so I agree with that. When Peyton gets bad grades, he doesn't get to play Xbox. That seems fair. It's probably the thing he enjoys doing the most. So focus on your studies and you can play again. When Gwendolyn picks on Isabelle, she does Isabelle's chores. I thought that was brilliant.
Right.
All right. You're going to bother that sister of yours? Then guess what? You have double the chores this week. But then the last one, she says, when Isabelle is a brat, which is, I guess, Christine speak, but I don't think she should have put it in the book. I don't think she should have written it. Like if you know her and the way she talks, you can get it. But like, I didn't appreciate that she put that in writing. Like when Isabelle reads that, I mean, come on. She said, she can't spend time with me. Wow. And I just thought that just hurt me to the core when I read it, because Isabelle's the one who doesn't get along with her that much and is always wanting to spend time at Mary's as it is.
Right.
So like, I don't feel like the punishment fit the crime in that situation. Like you have a child that you're struggling to connect with and who's wanting to spend a lot of time with another mom and is saying all these positive things about her and how she wants to live there and how, everything is great over there. And I love Mary. And then to give her the punishment when she's misbehaving in your house that she can't spend time with you, I just didn't understand. And I'm like, there has to be, don't spend time with Mary.
Right. Right.
We're going to work through this, kid. You're not going to Mary's tonight. We're going to see to it and talk through it until we're on the same page and we're laughing and having a bowl of popcorn and saying, isn't that funny what had happened today? That's what we're going to do, like it or not. I don't know. I don't know. That just comes off the top of my head. I just felt like, wow, all of them were great examples of punishment fitting the crime until we got to that very last one. And I just don't understand it. I just read it and went, I have 3 question marks after it, have it underlined. I'm like, what? Why? Where do you get that from? How? Why? What is your motivation? Isn't that going to make things worse between the two of you? I don't know. Know.
Well, because I think that, big shout out to Tanya Johnson, $1.49 super sticker. Thank you so much.
Tanya.
I will say this. I think that there's a sadness in the point of when Christine says that, I withhold my time, attention, affection, or whatever. Mm-hmm. It struck me when I first read that, that's exactly how Kody punishes her.
That's so true.
You know what I mean? Like the parallel of it. Like that's how he punishes her. So when she resists him or she doesn't give him what she wants, that's when he came to her and said, "I'm not coming over your house. We're not going to have an intimate relationship anymore. If you don't want to do what I want you to do, then we're not having an intimate relationship. I'm not going to spend time with you and give you the pleasure of my company." And so, like those types of, I think those like, I just get the feeling like that type of punishment is kind of a holdover from the involvement of how that culture works. Mm-hmm. Like it's almost like I guess it's a de facto shunning, if you will. Like I'm going to shun you, I'm going to disown you, I'm going to disassociate myself from you until you get on the page I want you to be on. Mm-hmm. And I don't think, and like what you were saying, I totally agree with that. I think that that's a completely inappropriate way to do it, and I don't think that there's any productive outcome that you're going to get from ignoring your child or saying you can't spend time with me. Like it's not, you're not building bridges. Like if anything, you want to try to pull them in, like you said, you want to make them closer to you so that you can explain your perspective and try to get them to understand why you're doing what you're doing and why you need them to do a certain thing or not do a certain thing. It doesn't help you to say, okay, well, I'm not going to spend time with you. And you're not going to, and instead of me explaining to you what you need to do to improve or how you can improve, I'm just going to not talk to you and then leave it to you to figure it out and how to get back into my good graces. And again, and that's one of the weird, like, even now that I think about it, talking my way through it, even now that I think about it, I guess in a weird rudimentary way, the man is the center of the universe. And the wives are offshoot of the man. And so the wives are the man's satellites, whereas the children are the wives' satellites. So the children float around the wives, and the wives float around the man. And even the way Kody addresses or even deals with the kids, you can see it in some of those, or at least on television. You can see kind of that it's reflective in that because he doesn't really necessarily deal directly with the kids as much as he deals with the wives and even how he talks about them. Logan, Janelle's kid. Yeah. Aspen, Christine's kid. Like it's not our child or our children. Yeah. It's this one or that one's kid. You know what I mean? So they're going around them. And so the same way he would cut the wives off, the wives will cut the kids off. In a weird way. So
that totally makes sense. That's the environment she was in for all those years. So by the time Isabelle was fine when she was really young. So it was really when she started hitting, 12, 13, 14, that things became more difficult. Well, that's how many years of Christine being underneath Kody and learning that kind of punishment and for her. And you do what you're raised with so often, even if you don't like it, because it's unfortunately kind of becomes just part of you. Right. It's hard to break cycles. It's a good point.
Yeah. And it is sad too, because the craziest part about it is at the end of the day, you could even make the argument, you know how it feels when it happens to you. So why would you do that to somebody else? You know, but there is another saying, like, hurt people hurt people. And so you experience that pain and that suffering, and you know that it has some corrective ability, because it forces you to correct your behavior because of what happens when you argue with Cody and he doesn't come around. You know it works. So you try to implement that same tactic, not recognizing the damage that it's causing in your relationships. And again, I think it's I like what you were saying, like it is a sad situation. Like it doesn't make me like, well, that's funny. Like it's terrible. Like it's a terrible thing.
Yeah.
You'll do that to your kids.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't imagine. That would have totally worked with my second child, though. Let me tell you. He was like connected to my hip. I would have said, "You don't get mommy time today."
Right.
Guaranteed.
What have I done? You know.
My son was bouncing off the walls. He would have been like, "Okay."
Right. Cool. I get no more stuff.
You have too many rules anyway.
Right. Get in more trouble. You know, and one of the, and actually, ironically, and I'm glad it didn't work out this way for Christine and Isabel's relationship, because they did spend a lot of time with each other, and she did reconnect with her. Yeah, there's a couple things there, but first thing, you know, one of the sad parts about it is that when you're training them to response. So there is an argument to be made that if you do your kids and you teach your kids that you can disconnect from them, what you're also teaching them is that they can disconnect from you. Kind of what happened with Cody and Christine. Cody thought he was punishing, and I'm sure that's a trick he used for years.
Yeah.
But he used it one too many times. And then that last time he used it, all of a sudden he got his stuff packed in the garage. You know, and a weird thing, I'm sure it didn't feel this way at the time, but a weird thing is during COVID, where Christine had to deal with Isabelle and her kids by herself, it also opened another doorway where Christine was given the opportunity to support her daughter without question. You know what I mean? Cody was saying, like, for the surgery, oh, she doesn't need to go. She can hold off. She can wait. She can go by herself. And Christine put her foot down and said, she is going to get the surgery, but she's in too much pain. 2, she's not going to sit here and suffer. 3, there's no way in hell I'm putting her on a bus by herself and she's going to do this alone. I don't care what you're saying.
Yeah.
And at that moment, she stuck up for her daughter in a way that I think, with a voice and power that Christine may not have shown before. And that in itself may have bonded the two of them closer together.
Yeah, I believe that, because didn't it seem like from that point on, they were really close? And I think from that point on also, Isabelle was really done with her dad. Like that was kind of, and they were close. Like she, you know, there were early on when she was younger, she spent a lot of time with him and on his lap and around him. And I think that they had a tight bond. And I feel like that was pretty much the end of it. And of course, Isabelle's old enough at that point too, that she was seeing what was going down between her brothers and Cody. And she was seeing also how he wasn't coming over and, you know, how he was over, you know, so she was putting 2 and 2 together probably for a while. But yeah, you're absolutely right. It was that opportunity for her to see when push comes to shove, who's the one who's really there for you in the end. And yeah, that was her mom.
Yeah. Well, because it's that, you know, people say a lot of things, you know, well, my child, I would do anything. And ironically, and I've said that before, like the crazy part is that when Cody, because I've talked about like the whole sex conversation, you know, and guys will always have that thing that you know, if a guy comes around, young man come around, I'm gonna threaten to do this and I'm gonna threaten to do that and I'm gonna scare him and blah blah blah. Because I would do anything for my child. I would go to prison. I would, you know, live or die for my child, whatever. And in that next breath, you say, well, you would live, die, or go to prison for your kids, especially your daughters, because you're the protector. I'm watching season 2, episode 9, where Cody's sister says, I'm the father, and it's my duty from God, and I have to answer to God if I don't take care of you. But then you're willing to take that route when it comes to your daughter's purity, but you aren't willing to take that route when it comes to something that's being inconvenient for you to go on a trip with her to make sure she's okay after surgery. You're willing to go to prison because a guy wants to date her, but you're not willing to go away for the weekend and not see Robyn and her kids for a week. You know what I mean? Like, you're willing to go to jail for 15, 20 years of the rest of your life because somebody wanted to talk to her and have relations with her, but you won't spend a week with her. Like, you know what I mean? It's incompatible. It's incompatible. So,
hey, speaking of which, what happened to Truly when she was with Isabelle for those weeks? And did we ever see? I mean, I'm guessing there's no way Kody took her. Did she? Maybe she went back home to Annie. When Christine went to New York for all those weeks for Isabelle's surgery, where was Truly?
You know what? Did Truly go?
Oh, did she?
I think
that makes the most sense to me because she probably wasn't in school, so she could have gone. And I know she was traveling with Christine other places. So maybe I never saw her like in the hospital or anything, but maybe she never even went in the hospital just to stay away from other germs or whatnot. Maybe she was just in the hotel room. Although what would she have done with her at the time she would go to the hospital to visit?
Because if you remember, she went when she went out to she came out to the East Coast. She saw her sister, so she might have left Truly with her sister.
Oh, I don't remember that. Christine saw her sister out there on the East Coast. Yeah. Okay, I don't remember that. Okay.
Yeah, when she came out to the East Coast, she saw her sister, and so she might have left Truly with her sister.
Was she around there? Was she in New York?
I don't. Well, because it's not technically, it's not even New York. Like they kept saying New York because New York was the big scary, but they were actually in Jersey.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, they were in Jersey. Like, like that's the crazy thing too, because he kept saying like, "I'm not gonna be sitting in New York," because he said New York. And this is an argument tactic that I've seen like before. Like you use New York at the time was one of the hot spots during COVID, if you recall. You know, and that's where like a lot of casualties happen because New York is packed tight.
Yeah,
if you ever been to New York, you go to like McDonald's.
It's just like some of those European countries and how they went widespread through there because they were so compact. Yeah.
Right. They're on top of each other. Yeah. So New York got hit hard as hell. So when he said, "I'm not going to New York," you're not going to get me to fly over to New York because it's too dangerous. He conflated New York with where they were actually going to be at. I mean, they weren't going to New York. They were never going to be in New York. They would have been crazy if they would. I don't even think they could get into New York because they shut New York down tight as hell.
That's true. They did.
Yeah.
They're going to New Jersey.
Get in New York.
That's hysterical.
Yeah. But he said that in a way that like, and he's so confident. That's one of the crazy things about like between him and Robyn. And I see that in some of the other reality shows too. Like the people who are very deceptive are always so confident with the positions that they take is crazy. Like it gets you to second guess and like maybe I'm wrong. Like, like that's not where they're going. Yeah. You're not in like you could have went to the surgery. And I've always said he never had to go to even just redress it. Like he never had to go for the entire thing. The only thing he had to do was fly out, watch it, stay with her while she's going in to get prepped for surgery. She go through the surgery, she comes out. You're sitting in a recovery room in the ICU. When she's recovering, she comes out of it. She's okay. She gets to see you, maybe spend an additional day or two there. Then you can bring your ass home. Like nobody asked him to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
But he took it to like, oh, I'm not going to New York. I can't spend months away from the entire family because it's selfish. Nobody's asking you to do any of those things.
I know.
You're arguing for something nobody wants.
Right.
Nobody wants you to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But you've made up your mind. But again, ironically, what happened to where we go one, we go all?
Yeah.
What happened to that support system?
That's right.
I would do anything for my kid except for be there for them when they get, life altering back surgeries and take all kinds of risks.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a shocker, that whole episode. There's no way he was coming back. There's no way he could look good after that. There's just absolutely no way. And all those excuses, like you said, you just read right through them. You're just looking at the television going, what are you talking about?
Mm-hmm.
What are you talking about? Like, it's maddening sometimes to just watch the show and just be like, oh my God.
Right. What are you doing?
Like you're speaking another language or something. Like that's not the topic at hand right now. It's about you just doing the quarantine period of time right before the surgery and being there for her when she wakes up from the surgery. Maybe spend the next day and go back the next day again. And then Christine will stay the next weeks for recovery and you go back home. End of story. Can't spend that much time away from my family.
Right.
Really what, and the only family he was seeing was Robyn, so that's his family.
Right.
That was so hurtful. Oh, he's a mess.
And my favorite part is like they say, Kody always takes a position and you guys just misunderstand, you conflate a bunch of stuff and you don't really know me. You said this stuff though. And whether you like it or not, you put yourself out to be judged in this way. This is what you did, and you said it. And Lizzie B said something that I've said before. I think I've said it before. Like Kody didn't want to go because he didn't want to give in to Christine, and that wasn't the point. The point was to show Isabelle some support, and I agree with that because I even held out that when he was saying to Christine that he didn't want her to go, it wasn't that he wasn't trying to support Isabelle directly. He just wanted to hurt Christine, and that was a way for him to do it. That you can't go to see her. If I can't go, if I refuse to go, you can't go. And that's very similar to what I was saying about Robyn with seeing all them kids in that one big house and her kids are off on another house. Y'all can't all sit there together happy. You know what I mean? Well, I'm sitting here in the cut. Nope.
Yeah, and that goes back to the wedding again. Oh, I had to cut him so deep to watch that. And he couldn't help himself. He watched it. Robyn may not have watched it, but Kody would have never been able to help himself. He would have, even if it was in the dark of night and Robyn didn't even know about it, he would have gone and watched it just to see what was going down. And he probably just was seething with anger at the whole, just to see her so happy. The fact that she got 2 episodes just for her, he's like thinking dollar signs too, and how much money she got, and what this great wedding was that she got, and how great it was. I'm just dying to see the recommitment vow ceremony he's going to do with Robyn in the next season. And if he just did it to just try to one up Christine, like, oh, we're going to make it even better.
Right. Well,
you're not going to have all the kids there jumping on the dance floor.
Right. Well, he'll just spend way more money, probably.
Right.
But it's the sad part is that, like, I know that if they would have filmed him watching it, then all it would have been was, oh, this is stupid. That's stupid. They took that from our wedding. They're trying to be like us. Every wedding is pretty much the same thing. So it's kind of weird that you would be like, oh, it's stupid. They're stealing my ideas. Yeah, everybody does that. In New Jersey, Kathy with the 499 super chat. The worst was he attended to officiate a wedding during COVID. Yeah, while he's telling that broke Isabelle when she found out about that. I heard about that.
And Christine also seemed like she was.
Yeah,
she just couldn't even believe it. I feel like Christine had. She was 90% out the door. Like, we're done. It's over, when he wouldn't go to the surgery. But then when he went and officiated the wedding, she was kind of like, okay, say no more. It's not even family. Like, at least you used family, even though it wasn't your whole family and it was your special privileged family. But this isn't even family. So I'm out of here. We're done. I
Yeah,
was just thinking the other day too, like my daughter is going out of the country with her husband for 10 days. And right away, I'm like, well, what do you need done? Do you need them, do you need the lawn mowed? Do you need that? I'm going to go cat sit for 10 days. I mean, you do what I'm like, she could have found a cat sitter from somewhere, but she just recently bought a house. So she's in a new area. It's not where it's 35 minutes from where her apartment was before. So the cat sitter was part of the other apartment complex. So now she has to find somebody and she doesn't know anyone in the area. I'm like, I'm coming down. I'll just stay at your house. I'll make sure it's safe. I'll, put the lights on and people see that somebody's home, and I'll mow your lawn or whatever you need done while you're there. I'll probably paint a room or something because it's a new house. So do something to surprise them while they're gone. But yeah, isn't that supposed to be the natural instinct? It's like, oh, you're worried about what to do with now the house that, when you're going to go out of town, sign me up. I'm there. So my other daughter, her apartment is flooding, and now they have to move apartments on the other side of the complex. And I'm like, well, what weekend? Let me know. I'm marking it off. So just tell me, as long as I don't already have one of my events planned that I do for another business, I'm there. Just tell me as soon as you can, and I'll be down there, because that's what you do for your kids.
Right.
That's what you do. And those are menial things. That's moving because of an apartment that's flooding, and that's a cat that needs to be attended to. So a surgery, I mean, I can't even wrap my brain around it and fathom. You'd need Iron Man to hold me back. And Captain America. To keep me from going to that hospital and being there during one of my kids' surgeries. Unbelievable.
Yeah, I said the same thing. There's no way I would have missed that. Especially you might, there's not a strong chance, but there's a possibility that, she could walk in and roll out,
Yeah.
like something could happen, and that could be it, because they're operating on her spine. So
yes.
Like it's not like it was she was going down to get Botox injections. Like she's going to get legit surgery, like real surgery. And the whole notion of it is, and what bothers me the most, and this is kind of floating on the idea that, again, the children float satellite the mothers, and the mothers satellite him. His whole thing with Isabelle and the way he was treating her or mistreating her, I think, was rooted in the notion or idea that he wasn't getting along with Christine at the time. And because he wasn't getting along with Christine, he knows that Christine cares about her children. So I'm going to just punish your kids. Yeah. I'm going to take it out on your kids. And the whole idea of I'm taking it out on your kids as opposed to our kids is part of the notion. And that, in addition to the fact that, I'll take it out on Isabelle, but how mad could you possibly be? Because, again, like, one of the weird things about Kody is that even when he talked about Christine and Janelle having disagreements, they may have had disagreements where they, talk crap about one another here and there. But he took those one or two, those few times that they talk crap about one another and defined their entire relationship on those things. Yeah. So because she might have had difficulty with Isabelle, it's very possible in my mind he may have defined their whole relationship based on the disagreements that she had with Isabelle. She doesn't even really get along with Isabelle, so she don't care. Right. You know what I mean? Like, it's weird. Like, it's just weird to me. Yeah.
He probably thought he was going to be able to control that whole narrative. And by him deciding not to go, then Christine wouldn't go, and Isabelle will just be able to wait, or I'll just throw out like crazy things. Can't she just go by herself? Or, oh no, we're just going to hold off, and he didn't want to pay for it. And I guess in the end he didn't, right? Didn't she do a GoFundMe to pay for that surgery?
Yeah. Well, because the mothers a lot of times will be responsible for the financial aspects of a lot of the surgeries and medicals. And here's something that's a little dark. Okay. It occurs to me that Kody, in an attempt to punish Christine, and this is way dark. Like, I'm hoping that this isn't true.
Is this the darkest you've been, James? We go dark every single Sunday at one point.
Yeah, right.
I should say you go dark every single Sunday at one point or another.
Like, story time. Yeah, right. But it occurs to me that part of that punishment to Christine might have also been the knowing full well, because Kody tries to pretend like I won't say he tries to pretend. He holds out, or he contends that he didn't understand how bad Isabelle was hurting. But they made it crystal clear several times. They had the time when the whole family was together, and even Hunter and Gabe and Garrison were sitting there saying that she's on the bus crying because they go over a bump and she can't take it. She's crying all the time because she's in so much pain. She's being tortured. And there is a part of me that wants to consider the notion that he may have been okay with the fact that she was suffering, because her discomfort and her pain would have been something that Christine had to deal with, because he wasn't going over there to the house. He didn't have to deal with that at all. That's something that she would have had to bear by herself during that time alone.
Yeah.
And if she's talking about, and this again, this is crazy dark, but if she's talking about going out to Jersey to get her back fixed, that means that she will no longer have those back pains or troubles that she can't bother or play Christine with. Because you can see that, the fact that it hurt Christine, the fact that, and I get this, the fact that she waited so long to get that taken care of or addressed for her daughter, and that she suffered so much because she waited, that's something that really bothered Christine. And then to tell her or ask her to wait a little bit longer, or wait another 6 months to a year for her to get the surgery, that would have killed Christine.
Yeah.
So, the dark part of it is that he would be okay with his daughter suffering because he had the added bonus that it might hurt his wife at the time, girlfriend at the time. Like that's crazy to me, but
that could be. All right, let's go even darker. What if, and maybe you can help reflect since you're going back and rewatching things now too. I saw online after Dayton's accident a picture of Kody there at the hospital with Dayton in the room. I remember the hospital with Truly, but it seemed like Christine often was the one that was just there. And how much was Kody? I'm sure he went at some point, but did it go that far back too? I mean, because he clearly was ignoring her the entire time Christine was gone. He just expected the kids to care and take care of her. And she was ill. And, it was like not his responsibility. He was sleeping. He was grilling. He was burning things on the grill.
Right.
He took care of Isabelle. Yeah. When she cut her foot. Remember I said when she was younger, when Isabelle was younger, he was very attentive to her. Remember? He picked her up. Of course the cameras were there too, but picked her up, washed her foot out, got whatever was in it and got that all taken care of and all that. But Truly, she was pretty much just left on her own. He's kind of like, well, she's being quiet.
Right.
So I wonder if it goes back that far too. I'm really curious. How much time did he spend at the hospital with Truly, or was he back at home because Robyn had youngins at home too?
Right. Which would be terrible. Like it's just a bad situation, because even with Truly, like I think that it might not have been as much punishment for Truly as much as just genuinely aloof to her situation. Like he doesn't care. You know what I mean? Like he didn't care enough to make sure she was okay. Now it begs the question: if Robyn's kid was sick like that, would they have been in a situation where they would have been dehydrated to the point where they had kidney failure?
Right.
You know what I mean? Because that's essentially what happened with Truly.
Well, first of all, Robyn would never let her kids out of her sight. So there would never be that opportunity. I mean, even when Truly was left behind, Robyn took Solomon with her, didn't she?
Yeah.
On that trip?
Yeah.
So, she didn't, he was like in tow on that trip to San Francisco when Truly was behind. So I just can't, the opportunity would never be there when at that age for Robyn to ever leave her kids because they were so connected to her hip. But she probably would have been calling in every hour. Like he wouldn't have been able to have any kind of distance or opportunity to make a decision for Robyn's kids because Robyn.
Well, I don't think he would have the opportunity to make the decisions, but if he did, then he wouldn't have. I think he would have made the right choices for her kids. So not necessarily because he loves her kids so much, but because he understands the impact of his relationship with Robyn if something were to happen to those children.
Well, sure, because we also see him the least connected to Dayton. Never really saw any bonding stuff on the show with Dayton at all between the two of them. In fact, he almost seemed annoyed by him at times. Not outwardly, but just sort of like he was like aloof, like he's just arm's distance. There'd be photos where he was like him and, or he'd be with the girls. And then Dayton was like a half a foot apart and standing there, like the photos were sort of like, here are me and these cute little girls. And then this guy, I don't really understand him and I don't really relate to him. But he was there at the hospital. That's the photo that I saw online was him standing there at the bed with his arm around Dayton and smiling. So he was there. He was doing the right thing. He put his
ass in the hospital. He should have been there. It's his fault. It's his fault. But I think that like some of that could be also because of Dayton's situation being on the spectrum. He doesn't experience the closeness necessarily, like the whole touchy-feely nature of how he approaches. Because Kody has a very, and it's actually a little disturbing because they all have like they have poor boundaries when it comes to people's personal space. And with kids on the spectrum and folks on the spectrum, they're very sensitive about their personal space, their personal boundaries. So I don't think he had that opportunity. In addition to that, I would agree that he would have, at least it came off to me that some of the difficulty in bonding with Dayton is the fact that Dayton wasn't Hunter. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like he wasn't an athletic kid.
Right.
Dayton, in some respects, is kind of regimented to the same space where Peyton was. Like because Peyton wasn't going out. Peyton was because he's the biggest kid he got.
Yeah.
If Peyton would have became a football player, Peyton would have been his favorite kid. Like if that kid was playing for Arizona, the Cardinals, like you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Cody would there's my boy. Peyton is my son. Me and Christine.
Yeah.
We made a great one, but Peyton wasn't that kid. So Peyton didn't get a lot. I think that's part of the reason why Peyton didn't get a lot of attention. Same thing with Dayton. Dayton didn't get a lot of attention because Kody would bond with the boys because of the sports. Yeah. Yep. And he'll bond with them because of that. But if Dayton's not wrestling and Dayton's not playing football,
Yeah. Yeah, good point. Oh, I still need to know all the details of that. Someday there's going to be that book. Dayton's book will be amazing. Yeah. That's the one that I'd love to read. Especially since Dayton is now saying that he wants to go by the name David.
Right.
I'm like, oh, that means he's got a lot to say.
Yeah. Well, especially if something happens to his dad, that was always a concern for me. Like if in that situation, if something happens to his father and you guys kept him from his dad for all those years and he missed out on a lot of the opportunity.
Yeah.
It's going to be bad. It's just a bad look.
Yes.
Bad look.
Yeah.
Yeah. But did you have any, in closing, did you have anything that you wanted to say about the chapter?
No, I'm just going to say it was good. Thank you, Christine. You did not disappoint. Janelle, let's take some notes from your sister wife going forward. This is how we share a little bit of dirt and how we put some messages between the lines. Loved it. And I'm looking forward to Robyn next week.
Yeah. Robyn's going to be crazy because I think that Robyn's going to be the authority well, this is how I raise the children, but it'll be she'll take shots, but then at the same time she'll pretend like she doesn't understand she's taking shots. So I think that just on that front, it'll be good stuff.
Yeah.
My thing on this chapter again, I think that there was a little bit of revelation as far as the kids were concerned. I can respect the fact, and if this is what they were doing, I can respect the idea that they would want to protect their kids and maybe shield them a little bit from the panopticon of the or the gaze of the public. I get that, and I can respect that, because it can be a little hard on kids, especially when they're hearing nasty things about their parents or their siblings or whatever the case may be. It can be a little hard.
Yeah.
So I can understand that. But at the same time, I thought it was interesting when Christine gives a little more depth on the differences in the way she approaches the kids and the importance of having certain guidelines and boundaries for other children and how she approaches it. They also cover, like you said, they cover in a little bit of shots fired, a little inside baseball, if you could pick up on it, as far as how the furniture works and what the rules are in each one of the houses. I thought that was awesome. But like you said, I'm looking forward to hearing what Robyn has to say, because I know she's going to say something crazy.
Well, and what's interesting too is that Robyn has 3 kids. So one of the children was able to bond, McKelty was able to bond with Robyn during this period of time. So there's no reason why Robyn's kids wouldn't have been able to bond with one of the other sister wives, but I'm sure we're not going to hear anything about it. I mean, nobody's mentioned it so far, and it's not going to come up in the future, but I'm sure, and I don't even know if Robyn would share it if they did, but
right.
She's not going to.
No, I was just saying, because even with that, I agree, but I don't think Robyn would ever put herself in a position where her kids could feel that closeness with another parent. Yeah. Especially another woman. You know what I mean? Like another mother.
No.
She always want to be the head mom or whatever.
Yes. Thus the nanny. I would rather have a nanny come into this house and be with my kids than one of these sister wives. Who are offering to do it for free. To watch them. Yeah. She does not want her kids to bond with those other sister wives. No way. You're right.
Yeah, and that's also part of the thing with the with the whole adoption stuff. And that's part of what gave me a lot of the backfill for a lot of that as well. Because if she's willing to do that with people who she's marrying into this family because she wants the sister wives and the other additional mothers, but you're keeping your kids away from them. And then you have a man who wants to be a part of his kids' lives because he's the natural father, but you're keeping your kids away from him. And you're trying to control every aspect of their development, who their associations with, et cetera, then I don't really see a lot of hope held out that you're really trying to have your kids involved with these other women or have your kids involved with this man. So when you say those things, I kind of roll my eyes a little bit. You know what I mean? When she said that stuff. So,
Yeah.
I
bought it hook, line, and sinker, though, way back when. When I was watching it at first, I thought, oh, too bad. Deadbeat dad. Maybe abusive. I don't know. I don't know what all went down, but whoops. Time for me to do my Duolingo. Forgot to turn off my alarm. I am learning Espanol.
There you go. How's that coming?
Well, it's coming good. I've been having a lot of fun with it. I think I'm on a 16-day streak now. So
okay.
Give me another 300 days, and then I'll be able to say something good.
Okay. You're able to ask where the bathroom is.
¿Dónde es el baño? Por favor.
There you go.
Real
basic. Chunko would be proud of you.
That's right. I'm getting there slowly but surely. I went to a group with a bunch of ladies the other day, and the one gal is from Panama. And so I was telling her, I'm like, Leah, I'm learning Spanish now. And I said, partly because my son-in-law speaks Spanish. And so my daughter has been doing it for the past year. And I said, I think they're going to be raising their kids bilingual, which I recommended to them to do anyway. And I told them it's really good. It's good for their brains. Don't believe any of the old science stuff. It's really good to give both languages at the beginning. The delay of language doesn't matter. It's all good. But I'm thinking, if my grandkids speak Spanish, I want to be able to speak Spanish. My other daughter, she just did a mission trip to Honduras with the veterinary students. And she took 5 years of Spanish in high school. And her husband took some too. And he's been doing Duolingo. I'm like, everyone's going to be speaking Spanish in my family. It's been 30 years since I've taken Spanish in high school. I have to learn Spanish. So that's why I'm motivated now for my grandchildren, which don't exist yet, but my potential future grandchildren who are going to be bilingual. By then, abuela will be able to speak Espanol.
There you go. Well, you just don't want to be sitting in the room looking around, smiling.
Yeah.
Everybody talking.
Or everyone else is having this conversation. No way.
Right.
I need to
Just
at least be able to understand. I want to be able to just listen and know what's going on.
Well, you know what? If you don't speak the language, just listen for your name and learn the word for insurance. What's that? What?
What? Excuse me?
Did she have insurance? Everybody laughing and pointing. Yeah, no.
It's too funny.
But so do you have anything going on this week, or we should be looking out for?
I just released part 2. I thought there were only going to be 2 parts, but there's actually 3. Part 2 of explaining to my son about sister wives. So early in the week, part 3 will come out, which is Flagstaff on. So that'll be coming soon. And then, of course, on Thursday night, we have our live at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So tune in for that as well. How about you, James?
Awesome. Well, I just have the sister lives tomorrow, and then within the next week or so, like I got some things squared away, so I'll be able to delve more into releasing actual videos as opposed to just on the lives. But I'll be releasing some more sister wives content, some more 90 Day Fiance content, some other reality shows, and I'm about to launch my take on family court. So I'll be having some family court stuff.
Oh, okay, good.
Channel. Yeah, so starting a new channel, and I'll be launching that soon. So
that's excellent. Yes. And how is the comedy stuff coming?
Oh, it's coming good. I gotta I had to work some stuff out, like because some of the stuff I was like, maybe I don't want to tell those jokes. So I had to rework.
That's a separate channel, the late night channel.
Right, exactly.
Named the late night comedy channel.
What they call that? Blue comedy. It was going to be
that's
blue
right.
comedy. So I had to, self-edit a little bit.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, so it should be fun. But I want to make sure we thank the mods who are in the house. I saw Lizzie B on my side, Rochelle J in the house. I think J Baby's here as well. Lynn Skinner.
Over here, yeah.
Also here. Did your other person show up?
Nope.
I didn't see him. Okay. No shame. Everybody got stuff to do. It's cool. Right. But thank you guys for holding us down on the mods tip. And thank you guys for keeping the chat super chill. Had a lot of fun checking stuff out. Somebody said earlier, like, we too deep in it. I just like to know what I'm talking about. That's all. Not too deep. I'm not sitting outside their house. So
that's right.
I just go over what's on the show. But I want to thank everybody for coming out. That's my take. I'm James. This has been my take on reality. And
this is Jenny with Senior Perspective. Good night, everybody.
All right. You guys have a fantastic night. Make sure you tip your waitress on the way out. Hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you're not yet subscribed. Thanks, guys. Have a great night and see you tomorrow. If not, see you on Thursday.